Park here in Pittsburgh. It is time for Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell. We're here at one of the nicest ballparks in baseball for the culmination of the fourth game of a huge series between the teams with the two best records in the National League. The Cardinals, who have the best record in all of baseball, and the Pirates, who have taken two of the first three in this series. It's down to 3.5. 2 weeks ago, the Cardinals had a 9-game lead on Pittsburgh. But over the last 6 or 7 weeks, the Pirates are the hottest team in baseball. The Cardinals trying to weather the storm with a lot of injuries. A big one tonight. The Pirates could move within 2.5 if they pick up a win here tonight. Earlier today, us arriving at the ballpark on our way to our special location tonight. Tonight is a Sunday from the Seats game presented by Booking.com, and we are coming to you live from high above the Clemente Wall here in right field. Crucky's got the glove on. By process of elimination, he's the guy who's got to catch the home run ball here tonight. Welcome to Pittsburgh. Welcome to the right field bleachers. Dan Shulman, Kurt Schilling, John Kruk, very glad you're with us. A crazy, crazy game here last night between the Cardinals and Pirates. Maybe the game of the year in all of baseball. Ending on a 14th inning, two-run homer by Andrew McCutchen after the Cardinals had scored a run in the top half of the inning, and the Pirates walk it off and have taken two of the first three in this series. Crucky, he is a special, special player. Even though he's won an MVP, even though everybody here knows how good he is, I'm not sure all of America understands what a talent he is.
Well, he's one of the best players in the world. And the thing you love about Andrew McCutchen is when the red light becomes brightest, that's when he seems to be at his best. The home run in the 14th inning. But what he's done to this city, he's transformed this city over the last 20 years into a place where people want to come play now. And that was something that never happened in the city of Pittsburgh. He's brought what they have now as far as playoffs go, and I think this is the year that they can go a lot farther in the postseason than they have before.
They've made the playoffs each of the last 2 years. They haven't gotten past the division series, though, in either of those 2 years. When you were a pitcher, you had a book on every hitter. Let's pretend you're putting a book together on Andrew McCutchen.
Well, I did, and I did it from a left-hander's perspective, so it's a little different take on things. But I watched about 20 at-bats. I watched them over and over again, like I'm pitching against them. And there's actually my book from 2001. Against left-handed pitching, he will take pitches in his first at-bat. His first or second at-bat, he'll look early, get a feel for the pitcher, get a feel for location. He is always hunting the fastball. You cannot throw a fastball by him middle out of the strike zone, left-handed or right-handed. Does not chase the ball down in the strike zone. Has tremendous strike zone discipline at the bottom half. The only place I see him getting chased is up in the zone to up out with plus velocity. Otherwise, you got to kind of pick your poison, pitch around him, and go after Marte.
So there's kind of an overview on the Pirates playing some great baseball right now. How about the Cardinals after losing that 14-inning game last night? Let's go to Buster. Only Buster, how are the Cardinals reacting to that loss 24 hours later?
Well, Dan, the Cardinals blew 3 leads during that game. The last, of course, when Andrew McCutchen hit that walk-off homer. And Cardinals manager Mike Matheny lingered at the rail for just a moment to watch the Pirates celebrate before going into the silent St. Louis clubhouse. But after that, some of the players told me the Cardinals did what they do in these situations. After a while, they talked about things that they actually did well during the game. Matheny went to a couple pitchers, had a tough night, and he said, take that one and erase it. And no matter what happens tonight, the St. Louis Cardinals are going to finish the first half of the season with the best record in all of baseball. Dan, back to you.
Buster, thank you. Yeah, they're still 56-32, even after that loss last night. But again, the Pirates have closed within 3.5 as we enter the final game of this 4-game series, the last game of baseball before the All-Star break. Beautiful PNC Park, the Pirates and the Cardinals coming up. Club Chalupa, because bacon you can't eat is bacon you don't need. And in part by New Balance, always in beta. Welcome back to Pittsburgh. Some rain earlier tonight. The tarp was on the field during batting practice, but it has cleared up. We've got baseball coming your way tonight from PNC Park as we check out the starting lineup for the visiting St. Louis Cardinals, brought to you by Taco Bell. The Cardinals, like the Pirates, middle of the pack offensively overall in the National League. Matt Carpenter, when he bats leadoff, like Matheny says, he just seems like a different hitter, seems a lot more comfortable. And without a lot of acclaim, Crucky, Johnny Peralta's having a really strong season.
Oh, yeah, an all-star this year and leading the team in average home runs, RBIs, and hits. And, you know, where would they be without Johnny Peralta? The pitching's been great. Their offense has been inconsistent, but Peralta's been great all season.
Sure, when you watch Francisco Liriano, what's the first thing that jumps out at you?
That the Pirates are a legitimate World Series contender. They've got a team behind Garrett Cole is their ace. This guy's a 1A. He's back and as good as he's ever been with that nasty slider and a Santana-like changeup.
Crucky, get your glove on. Anything coming down this way towards the right field foul pole is yours.
I got it.
Just like between innings, I got to try to find it.
And we are underway here in Pittsburgh. Matt Carpenter stepping in, hitting .269 on the season. He'll be followed by Colton Wong and then Peralta. And Liriano misses down and away to fall behind 2-0. Liriano, a 5-6 record, but a little deceptive. A .299 ERA on the season, better than a strikeout per inning, and holding the opposition to a meager .190 batting average on the season.
And that's what you get from Francisco Liriano. You get ahead in the count, you better hunt one pitch and not miss it. Matt Carpenter right there missed that pitch, make the count 2-1. And with Liriano's changeup and slider, you never know what you're getting.
Ball 3. These are the two teams with the best team ERAs in all of baseball. The Cardinals are first, the Pirates are second. Back in a full count.
We're getting one tonight. Yeah, getting one tonight.
Really?
Yep.
So I better get the glove ready.
Glove up, Crucky.
You don't need the glove.
No, what could be the difference?
If you miss it and it hits off your face, you'll be all right.
Improvements made by everyone.
3-2. Foul back. Carpenter got off to a great start this season in the leadoff spot. Cooled off, was moved down to 2. Colton Wong up to the leadoff spot for a while, but as Mike Matheny said, Carpenter seems more comfortable in the leadoff spot, and Matheny feels that Wong's the same hitter no matter what spot in the order he puts him in. As Carpenter takes inside ball 4. So now here's Wong hitting second.
The last game we did with the Cardinals with Matt Carpenter hitting second, he was very aggressive early in the count, swinging, and it seems like when he bats leadoff, he gets more selective. And, that's a great take right there on a 3-2 pitch from a tough lefty to start the game off with a walk.
And it takes a really talented hitter to be able to hit to the spot you're hitting in the order.
Wong open stance. Carpenter held on at first, and now a swing and a ground ball to second. Could be 2. And it is 4-6-3 double play, even with the speed of Wong.
Crucky, it looked like almost like an in-betweener. Flip or turn. That was a long flip.
Yeah, a very long flip, and you don't think Jordy Mercer was thinking about it. Watch how far Neal Walker has to flip this ball. But, give Jordy Mercer credit. He hung in there. Matt Carpenter doesn't run great. He runs good, but not great, but plenty of time to get that off. And what a strong arm by Jordy Mercer.
A good flip.
Good stretch at first by the versatile Sean Rodriguez, playing a bunch of different positions for the Pirates. So just like that, 2 outs, nobody on, and here's the all-star Johnny Peralta, who is leading the Cardinals in all 3 Triple Crown categories: batting average, home runs, and RBIs. Fly ball to left, lots of room for Starling Marte, and the inning is over. to the bottom of the first in Pittsburgh. No score. Just a few drops here and there as we go to the bottom of the first. No score. And a look at the Pirates lineup tonight, brought to you by Taco Bell. Jordy Mercer, who has been hot, is in the leadoff spot tonight. Neal Walker, who's been hot. The Pittsburgh native is hitting second. Andrew McCutchen's been crazy hot, including the game-winning home run of the 14th inning last night, and then really coming into his own this year, Truckee, Starling Marte.
Yeah, the talent has always been there, but when he first got to the big leagues, they thought maybe he should be a leadoff hitter. He wasn't suited for that position. I think he's in a more comfortable spot, fourth or fifth in the lineup, where he can just free swing and let it fly.
Just the fourth major league start for left-hander Tim Cooney, who's a Pennsylvania native. Started a game of a day-night doubleheader the Cardinals had last week. Jaime Garcia's on the DL with a groin injury. They hope to have him back right after the All-Star break, but Cooney has been filling in over the last couple of weeks. He is from Collegeville, Pennsylvania. Third-round pick back in 2012. And Mercer takes low ball one. Filling into something that the Cardinals have gotten used to this year. They've had a lot of injuries, and a lot of guys have had to get called up from the minors or step into larger roles. As Mercer's out in front of the off-speed pitch, it's 1-1. Mercer, the shortstop for the Pirates. Neal Walker on deck, the second baseman, and then Andrew McCutchen. And you will hear an enormous ovation when McCutchen comes to the plate. Breaking ball loops in over the outside corner for a strike. 1-2.
So they told us he would empty the arsenal early in the game, and I didn't think he'd do it to the first hitter.
And a chopper over a leaping Cooney, barehanded, and on to first in time to get him. What a good play. Wow. Bolton Wong making the play probably the only way he could to get the out.
Truckee, all bare hands aren't created equal.
No. And this is a long one, too. Jordy Mercer can run a little bit. Once that ball got over Cooney's head, you think, well, there's no chance. But watch how quick Colton Wong recovers on that play, how quickly he gets to that ball, and just bare hand, quick flip to first base. Got him pretty easily, too.
Here's Walker. Walker hitting .280 on the season, .391 over his last 15 games. Grew up right here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Dan, watch from Cooney tonight. Watch Yachty set up away from righties. He hasn't hit that outside corner yet. He'll pull that ball back over the middle. He needs to get it right and get off the middle before McCutchen comes to the plate with his fastball.
Ground ball up the middle and through, a base hit. So a man on with one out for McCutchen. Well, when you get a partial standing ovation in your first at bat, you must have had a pretty good night the night before, huh?
And a lot of these people are probably repeat customers at the ballpark that watched it.
Great atmosphere here last night. When they're rolling, this ballpark is about as loud as any in baseball.
It's the one right there. You will not throw a fastball by him, and if you're away with the fastball as a lefty, you have to be down and away or off the plate. You watch the setup. He's trying to overthrow his fastball, and that's why you see that ball leak back right over the middle. You throw 2 pitches in the same spot, and the second one usually gets signed as an autographed souvenir.
Back in April, McCutchen was really struggling. But over the last 7 or 8 weeks or so, he's been about as hot as anybody. The Pirates overall, like the Cardinals, kind of an average offensive team. But McCutchen starting to put up the numbers you would expect. 312 homers, 56 runs driven in.
That'll work.
I mean, that's what baseball is. Good players, the season's long enough, you'll figure it out. The young average guys will bury themselves after an April like that and never be able to bounce out of it.
McCutchen perhaps on pace for his first ever 100 RBI season. He's been an MVP. I don't think you could say he's the front runner at this point of the season with the kind of years that Bryce Harper's having. Paul Goldschmidt, although his team is under 500, putting up enormous numbers. Buster Posey. Cardinal people feeling Johnny Peralta may be a top 5 MVP candidate, but McCutchen's probably in that same mix as well. 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there with almost half a season left. And a lot of it comes down to, is your team a winner at the end of the year, too?
Guys, Francisco Cervelli told me that when McCutchen's batting average was in the 100s in April, he'd come in after games and you couldn't tell at all that he was struggling. He says that's the way he is every day. He reminds him of Derek Jeter in that regard.
Oh, he's so good. You know eventually someone's going to pay for your slow month. Confidence is a big thing, no matter how good you think you are. Sometimes you get doubts, Dan, and that's, you know, there was times throughout my career where I thought, man, am I ever going to get another hit?
It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
I can remember being terrified of throwing a strike.
She'll take us back to something you showed us a little bit earlier, your book, as it were, as a pitcher on facing a guy like Andrew McCutchen.
Well, one of the things he doesn't do, and he didn't do last pitch, is chase the ball below the zone. He has tremendous awareness down. I don't know why that is, Crucky, but I feel like out off the plate or up with velocity are the only times you get him to chase or really swing and miss. You can't throw a fastball by him in the middle of the strike zone, up or down.
Up and away, a full count.
And that right there, Crucky, that take, that's a very comfortable take, almost as if the ball's coming out of his hand and he's deciding right there.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Andrew is when you watch him hit is he has a short stride. His hands are very still. And the power comes from the explosiveness of his hips. I mean, he has the quickest hips I've ever seen going through the hitting zone.
His bat speed reminds me of Molitor.
Let's see if Walker's on the move. He is not. And it is strike 3 called to get McCutchen.
Well, I was talking earlier about the book on him. You've got it. He's hunting. He'll hunt the fastball. He's always looking for the fastball. But I think to put him away, he's got to be chased up. If you're going to throw a fastball at him late in the count, it has to be in to in off. And look at that. I mean, that's a perfect pitch. It might be up a little bit more, but he's looking middle out over. And he got fooled. I bet you it doesn't happen again tonight, though.
So with 2 outs, here's Marte. First pitch swinging, drives the ball to left field, but over to make the catch is Randall Grichuk, and that will end the inning. Through 1 in Pittsburgh, no score between the Cardinals and the Pirates. 19 with a picture of how you're supporting your favorite team, and your tweet could wind up on TV. Here at PNC Park, Dan Schulman, John Kruk, Kurt Schilling. We're up above the Clemente Wall down the right field line, 21 feet high, in honor of the late, great Roberto Clemente. More on him throughout the telecast tonight. Buster Olney with us as well. Jason Hayward leads off the second for the Cardinals and takes down and away ball one from Francisco Liriano. Hayward will be followed by Yadier Molina, then Mark Reynolds. It's been an up and down season for Hayward, and up and down in the lineup as well, as the Mike Matheny has experimented with different looks based on injuries and other matters. They're without Matt Holliday still right now, a quad injury. Thought they might activate him for this series, but instead they'll give him a few more days through the All-Star break and hope to have him back on Friday. Also Matt Adams, their first baseman, out for the year with a torn muscle in his quad. John Jay's on the DL. And there they sit at 56 and 32. Oh yeah, that Wainwright guy's not pitching for them.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Forgot about him.
Yeah.
Has he been good lately? His whole career.
Jordan Walden on the DL. Hope to get him back soon as well, as Hayward draws a leadoff walk. Second inning in a row, Liriano's walked the leadoff.
You can't continue to keep putting the leadoff man on. I don't care how good a stuff you have. At some point, someone's going to get a big hit and start advancing runners. Got away with it last inning after walking Matt Carpenter. He got the double play ball off of Colt Wong. You can't continue to. And his command, Kurt, is. I mean, some of those pitches aren't close.
Well, the issue, the only equalizer is that he is a strikeout guy. He can get swings and misses. But those leadoff walks are it's just different than a hit. I can't explain it, but leadoff walks are just, I don't know, because you know what, generally you don't get 3 hits off a guy like this.
So they're worse, they're more deflating for a pitcher?
I don't know. I don't know, but you can get 2 hits in a row off Nelson Liriano, off good guys every now and then. You don't usually get 3, so that walk usually ends up being something you got to take advantage of.
There's Yadier Molina.
But I will tell you, see, he's overthrowing the ball right now. I was going to say, one of the lefties I used to just be remarkable at this was Tom Glavine. He would have some issues with the strike zone for the first 2 innings. If you didn't beat him, he was winning. The game was over because he found it in second, third, fourth inning and went to work. And Nelson's a little bit like that.
And a ground ball with the hit and run on through the vacated hole on the right side. Molina excelling at putting the ball in play to the opposite field, and it winds up first and third, nobody out.
And I promise I'm going to call him Francisco at some point tonight.
But this is Cardinals baseball right now. Hayward leads the team in stolen bases. He takes off, gets a great jump, but you can tell right there it's a hit and run the whole way, and no hesitation. Yachty shoots it through that hole. Hayward just continues on to third base, and now you have the potential of a big inning.
Now, some of this obviously is guesswork, but they chose to have the second baseman cover instead of the shortstop.
Well, yeah, and if you looked at that pitch, it was a fastball. He pulled back over the middle of the plate. Even if he makes the pitch there, that ball's a single in the hole, as long as Yadier doesn't do too much with it. But the infielders, those are the 2 guys. You'll see them communicate behind their gloves, talking about, you take it, I'll take it.
Back to the mound. There's 1 and 2. The double play for the Pirates, but the run scores for the Cardinals. No RBI on the play for Reynolds. St. Louis takes a 1-0 lead.
We've seen this play get poorly executed by a lot of teams this year, but look at Liriano. Talk about a perfect throw right there to Neal Walker. I mean, he basically threw a drop-down little cutter, but Neal Walker made a great play to recover, knowing that the ball was hit hard. Mark Reynolds, not a burner, had plenty of time.
So just like that, 2 outs, nobody on. 1-0 St. Louis. The batter was Randall Grichuk, the left fielder. Shell, how important is it as a pitcher? It's a little thing that maybe fans don't pay attention to, but every time there's a runner at first, you look back to the middle infield, and you know which middle infielder you're going to on a comeback.
Yeah.
How important is that to know?
Those are the things. There are little things you do during spring training. That's one of them.
Ball skipped over, and Rodriguez unable to come up with it on a bounce, so safely across is Grichuk. That'll be an infield hit for Randal Grichuk.
Well, it's a do-or-die play by Jordy Mercer and for Sean Rodriguez, because Grichuk, we know, can run really well. It would have been a bang-bang play if Sean Rodriguez could have come up with it. But, again, this is do-or-die. The great thing with Sean Rodriguez is what you're taught as a first baseman, never let it go under your glove. And he got enough glove on it to make it pop up in the air to where Grichuk couldn't go to second base.
And I'll tell you the other thing, Dan, we were talking about that leadoff walk and how you don't get a lot of hits. Rarely do you score a run on one hit that isn't a home run. And against a guy like this, that's oftentimes what you have to do. You have to take advantage of that opportunity. Door gets open very rarely and not consistently.
Cardinals stole 5 bases in the game last night. Pittsburgh has allowed 75 stolen bases on the season. That's the most stolen bases allowed in the major leagues this year. So we'll see if Grichuk is in the mood to run. He's got 3 steals on the year.
%90 of those are pitching staff. Pitching staffs generally, it's funny how that always kind of works. They'll hold runners as a staff, or they'll not do it well as a staff.
Francisco Cervelli's thrown out 22% of opposing base stealers this year. Changeup swung on and missed, 1-1.
You can just see Liriano not comfortable with anything right now. He's get 1-1 or 1-0, and you're throwing changeups to the 8th hitter. Even though Borges has some power in his bat, but he just can't command anything right now. And if you're the Cardinals, you better hope you take advantage of it. 1 run ain't gonna be enough.
Well, you like to shoot for 67 to 75% strikes. He's thrown 12 strikes and 13 balls.
Doesn't add up?
No, it won't.
Pulled foul. Borges, outstanding defensive player, made a great running catch in the alley last night. Great speed, hitting .234, 2 homers on the season. Two again. And into right field, a base hit. Grichuk around second, on his way to third. Polanco's throw is not in time. The Cardinals have runners on the corners with 2 down.
He's one of the issues with not being able to hold runners well, especially as a left-hander, is that you have to do some things differently. You know, he goes to a pickup, and you've seen he tried to quick pitch him, and that one he picks his foot up and comes back. And what it does, it affects your command. You're making, Johnny, it's like hitting with 2 different swings. You just consistently can't do one thing or the other. You got to get. You're more concerned with the runner than the hitter, and that's an issue.
And the thing too with the guy who sometimes slide steps, sometimes doesn't, and has an okay move to first base, is your secondary lead, and that's why Grichuk had such an easy opportunity to go first to third. Of course, the ball wasn't hit hard, but he got a great secondary lead.
And here's Cooney, the pitcher, and he can hit. A .268 lifetime hitter with the minors entering this season. In the big leagues, 1 for 4. The 1 is a double. Pirates well aware of this, of course. Left-handed batter. So this is no gimme at the bottom of the lineup for Liriano. So much energy in and around this team in this city the last couple of years with the success that they've had. Wild card berths each of the last 2 years. In 2013 to beat Cincinnati here in this ballpark, and then took the Cardinals to a 5th and deciding game of the division series. Last year lost to Madison Bumgarner and the Giants in this ballpark in the wild card game. Trying to make the playoffs for the 3rd year in a row. 2-2, and the runner from first, Borges, will advance on the wild pitch.
Well, with the pitcher up 2 strikes, the last thing you want to do is throw a wild pitch and score Grichuk from third base. But look at Cervelli. That ball hit his knee, his chest, underneath his face mask. Watch this ball hit it. Glove, knee, chest, underneath his face mask. But bottom line is he kept it close enough to where Grichuk couldn't score.
A little high and a full count. Not coming easy for Liriano here in the early going. It's just one of those nights, Shill, where you come out of the bullpen, you just don't have your good stuff. You got to figure it out on the fly.
Well, yeah, there are games when you start don't have your slider. You got to be good enough to still be in when it shows up.
This ball is ripped to right field. Polanco is back to make the catch. Cooney hit it well, but right of the right fielder. Run for the Cardinals in a 1-0 lead going to the bottom of the 2nd. Down PNC Park, you saw Bill Mazeroski, Hannes Wagner, better than 3,400 hits, Willie Stargell, Pops, and Roberto Clemente. You talk about history. The Pirates have been around since 1887, and so many great players, so much tradition. This is the Clemente Wall in right field. He wore number 21. This wall is 21 feet high. Wave, Crucky. Wave, Shill. Wave like you mean it, Shill.
That was meaning it.
Kind of a cool vantage point for us here in Pittsburgh over the next 4 weeks. 3 more after this one. We will bring you Sunday in the seats. Next week it will be in Anaheim. The week after that it will be high atop the monster at Fenway.
Each week brings an opportunity to see something you've never seen before.
Sharply hit to short, and Peralta in plenty of time at first to retire Jung Ho Gang for out number 1. The Gillette Home Run Derby, presented by Head & Shoulders, features baseball's most feared home run hitters competing in a new head-to-head bracket-style format with timed rounds from Great American Ballpark tomorrow night in Cincinnati, 8 Eastern on ESPN. Mr. Kruk and Mr. Schilling will both be a part of the coverage. Who you picking? Who you got?
I got Prince.
Well, one of us is going to be out in the first round then, because I got Todd Frazier.
And they're going head to head.
They're going head to head in the first round.
Frazier, the red, getting a chance to compete in front of his fans.
I'd like to see Todd do well just because of Cincinnati. I'd love to see Rizzo and Bryant meet up face to face, but Prince is going to hit some balls that might land here somewhere.
That might be foul.
Eventually they'll go curve foul.
Well, and the problem is if he hits it that far, that's a time thing, so he might run out of time.
Yeah, but he gets extra time for hitting 1 to 2 miles.
There are the brackets for the Home Run Derby, which you can also hear on ESPN Radio. A couple of younger players, Manny Machado and Jock Peterson. Chris Bryant against Albert Pujols. Anthony Rizzo, so 2 Cubs are in it, against Josh Donaldson and Prince Fielder and Todd Frazier.
I think it's tough for young guys that first time.
Guys, I'm hearing a lot from players that they believe the seeding is going to have a big impact on this, because if you're the better seed, if you're Albert Pujols #1 against Chris Bryant at #8, Bryant's got to go first, and if you're Albert Pujols, you can measure everything based on what happens in front of you.
And the seeding was just based on the number of home runs they have in the regular season. So Bryant was #8, Pujols was #1.
I think the reverse holds true as well, though, Jake. I mean, if you hit 15 in the first round and as the first guy,
pressure's on, man.
The other guy's got to get after it.
And that's why you might see guys rushing with the time thing. It's, you know. But the thing, you know, with this time thing is you know, the ungodly number of pitches guys would take.
Yeah.
Is, you know, we run. I mean, when you and I run out of things to say,
yeah,
that's a long time.
I don't know that anybody.
That's happened. What? That just happened?
It would happen if but that's kind of when the TV used to go off the air and the white snow.
You guys will be great. I'll be watching.
You get to be with your radio partner, Booney.
With Booney. Everybody's there.
That's going to be a table.
Everybody's there.
Boone, Kruk, and Berman.
Yeah. And who are you with?
Buster, Tim, and Ravi.
On the other side of the field.
Yeah, on the same side of the field.
On the same side.
Same. Yeah. But
can we put that to a vote?
Really?
I don't know.
There's Matt Holliday.
I'm going to get dragged down by Boomer and Booney.
Outside, a full count on Francisco Cervelli, hitting a very solid .291 on the season, 375 against the lefties. Big loss for the Pirates, of course. Russell Martin leaving Pittsburgh, signing as a free agent in Toronto. But Cervelli, who came over in an offseason deal, has had a nice season so far for the Pirates. 8th pitch of the at-bat coming, and there will be a 9th.
You know, last year we were doing a Yankees game, and Francisco came out in the hallway to said he wanted to talk to me about something. And he said, what do I have to do to be an everyday player? Do you think I can be an everyday player? I said, well, you're not going to be one here in New York because they just signed Brian McCann to a multi-year deal. And I said, but you have a feeling that the Pirates will not be able to sign Russell Martin. The Pirates will be looking for a catch and throw guy who can also hit.
Deep center. Borges back. Can't make the catch. Cervelli on his way to second, rounding it and heading for third. And is in there with a 1-out triple.
Like I mentioned, Dan, a catch and throw guy with energy who can also hit, and he just did 2 of the 3 things right here. And you see the pitch, pretty much center cut up out over the plate by Cooney, and you know, Francisco Cervelli never has had an opportunity to play every day, relishing in this performance. And you thought Borges, man, with his speed was going to run that down, but once it hit, Francisco Cervelli, you watch him running hard to first base. As soon as he saw that ball drop, the afterburners kicked in, and you know, how many catchers hit triples easily? That could have been a stand-up triple. But watch the emotion. You know, this is what Francisco Cervelli brings.
Cardinals have brought the infield in. The batter is Sean Rodriguez. And a fly ball to right field. Hayward setting up. And Cervelli will not test the arm, and a one-hop strike to the plate by Hayward. I'll tell you, from our vantage point, that's a whole different play than it usually is when we sit up above home plate. Hayward right below us as he makes the catch, and in a direct line to home plate. Pretty cool to watch the whole play develop.
I think you got to send him right there, don't you? You got now. I mean, Blanco's not going to see a pitch to hit.
Well, you wouldn't think, but You know, you watch it. I think the interesting thing to me was, we know about Hayward's arm. He's probably the best right fielder in baseball right now, defensively. But you notice Mark Reynolds, there was no cutoff man. It was like, you know, he's out. It's either going to be a bang play at home or a play at home, or, you know, he's not going to go. So why have a cutoff man?
So if you're Cervelli, do you have to consider this? And there's a lot going on when that ball's in the air, but do you consider where they are in the order, that they're going to walk Polanco, and now it's going to be up to a pitcher?
I don't know that Cervelli has anything to consider. I think it's a third base coach saying, hey, anything in the outfield, we got to make it, because you know, like I said, this is going to happen.
I find this is a young player hitting, a young player pitching, and you know, Mike Matheny decided to take it out of the young pitcher's hands of trying to pitch around Polanco, who, you know, you can get some swings and misses from.
So it's going to be up to Francisco Liriano, who is 2 for 35 this year.
Well, the hidden thing that this also does, obviously you want to score a run out of this, but you cleared the pitcher. So the Pirates, even if they don't score the run, it's still not a bad. It's a productive inning, because the top of your lineup is going to lead off next inning.
Yeah, you're getting McCutchen up in the first inning and the third inning, which is big.
I can't tell you how much, as a pitcher, I always used to think about walks and errors. They bring up hitters that shouldn't be up later in the game.
Lefty against lefty. Ropes one into the right field corner. Just his third hit of the season. One run is home. Relay to the plate is not in time, and Liriano has doubled home a couple of runs.
You want to get ahead of the pitcher, but you don't want to throw him a cookie right down the center of the plate, and that's what he did. And give Liriano credit. He was hunting that fastball first pitch, and give Clint Hurdle credit, because a lot of times you might give a guy a take in that situation. But that ball was hit hard, but Gregory Polanco just flew around the bases and really made that, you know, it's a close play, but it's not as close as what it could have been, because he was booking.
First RBIs, first extra base hit of the season for Francisco Liriano, and the Pirates have a 2-1 lead.
And I can tell you, people talk about the difference in AL and NL. In the National League, handling the bat is the difference between winning 17 and 20 games a year.
Two to 1 Pittsburgh. Back to the top of the order now for Mercer. And forgive me, I said extra base hit. He stopped it first on that play, but a 2-run single for Liriano.
Well, he's a pitcher who became a spectator after that ball hit the wall, because he hit first base and he was turning to watching Polanco running around the bases. And trust me, it's happened to all of us.
So a single that scores a runner from first, because Liriano was content with just one bag. Still 2-1 Pittsburgh.
Well, check out his lead. He's got a whopping lead.
Yeah, I don't think content is the right word. I think fear probably factors in.
I mean, they got Mark Reynolds was playing in front. Now he's playing behind him, and he's still got a lead of about one step.
Well, you run the bases differently when your sole thought is, I don't want to be picked off.
Inside of the knees, ball 2. The Cardinals have taken 5 of 9 from the Pirates so far this season, including 3 straight extra inning wins in St. Louis in early May. The Pirates have taken 2 of the first 3 in this series. The All-Star break is upon us after this game here tonight. Hooked foul.
I still think we're going to see the screens. I think at some point soon we're going to start seeing the screens down for balls like that. I think it's just imperative now.
How far down do you go?
I would come all the way down to the cut in the outfield, probably you know, 75, 80 feet past the dugout. Or you could bring it all the way out. I mean,
another base hit. Liriano around second, heading for third, and he'll be in there standing up on a single by Mercer.
Oh, again, watch the glove. Ball leaking to the middle. Jams him.
Watch the base running by Francisco Liriano. Watch it. He's looking. I might stop. Nope, I'm going to go. And even the third base coach was holding him.
Yeah.
But he said, come on, man. You ever seen me run? I don't need your help.
Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, he was looking back at Hayward.
Yeah, I think
how could he see the third base coach?
There'll probably be a kangaroo court appearance or two for that.
He's been running the bases for a while. Schill, I know you didn't spend an inordinate amount of time on the bases in your career, but did it tire you out when you got back to the dugout?
No, not. I mean, not really. It depends on the weather, the day, when. As a pitcher, it didn't happen a lot for me, so you were excited about it when it did.
Walker takes a strike at the knees.
That's the thing that I don't. That's all pitchers do in between starts. They run.
Yeah.
And they stretch and they do their dumbbells and arm exercises and they run some more. And they go from first to third. I like we need to give him a break.
Yeah. I've seen you go first to home.
Borges back, but room shy of the track to end the inning. But it's a productive one for the Pirates, and both runs were driven in by the most unlikely of sources. The 0-57 hitting Francisco Liriano. Pittsburgh has the lead. All-star, one of the most remarkable defensive outfielders in baseball history, a cannon of an arm, the MVP of the 1971 World Series, National League MVP in 1966, 3,000 career hits, and inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1973 after tragically dying in a plane crash delivering supplies to earthquake victims in Nicaragua on New Year's Eve of 1972. There is the statue outside PNC Park. And Schill, I didn't realize that as a kid you were a Pirates fan and this was your guy.
This was my dad's guy, so he became mine. I got to see one game in my lifetime as a fan. My dad took me to one game, and it was the final game of the 1972 season when he got his 3,000th hit off of John Matlack. And then he passed away in the accident. I just remember my dad telling me the story. It's the first time I ever saw my dad cry because he was his idol. But I remember the story around Sanguin and Stargell missing the flight, being late for the flight, and watching it from the dock. Devastating. I think he's one of the game's greatest players. One of the I think one of the 2 guys to not have to wait 5 years to go to the Hall of Fame, along with except for the first year of induction and stuff like that. But what a magic guy, unbelievable family. His sons are good people. His wife, got a chance to meet them, amazing people.
You got a shot of the Clemente Bridge, which is closed for car traffic before a game. People will walk back and forth. When they had the All-Star game here, they had the parade during the day on the Clemente Bridge. There's the Clemente Wall at right field. This is our vantage point. We're up above that wall tonight, down the right field line. And it is exactly 21 feet high because Clemente wore number 21. Also named after him, the Roberto Clemente Award. Named after him in 1973, it honors the player who combines outstanding skill on the field and outstanding community service. A very prestigious Major League award. As Carpenter takes strike 2 and back in 2001. Kurt Schilling was the winner. And you told me that's one of the most cherished things in your career.
The most. Only because I think it talks a lot about the people that helped me get to where my father, my friends, my teammates, my wife, my family, all of the people in my life that helped me do what I do and to become what I became, with all the warts and everything. It spoke more, I think, about who I was than what a baseball player says. And I've looked at the guys that won before and after, and I thought that it was repeatedly those kind of guys who tried to do something off the field to change people's lives.
Colton Wong shortens up on the bat, takes down and away ball 1. You put the glove on every time a left-handed batter comes up?
No, I was just listening to stories and watching Clemente. I just wanted to put my glove on. Made you want to play?
Yeah.
There was also a ceremony at the Hall of Fame where they dedicated a statue, and it was, I think, Jackie Robinson, Roberto Clemente, and Lou Gehrig. And I got a chance to be there and again see and meet the Clemente family, and just amazing people.
Live look from the Clemente Bridge. This is the ballpark. People who like to go to different ballparks, they love baseball. This is one where if you've been here, everyone says, wow, it's gorgeous. You got to go. I don't know if people who maybe are from other parts of the country or haven't been to this ballpark realize how pretty this park is. I mean, it is right at the top of anybody's list who has been here.
Well, for the new parks, Camden Yards in here, probably San Francisco's beautiful.
San Francisco, yeah.
A lot of them are really, really well done.
I just think anytime you can sit in a ballpark and see some sort of water, it's a good thing.
Grounder to second, and Wong is out by a step 2 down.
Native of Pittsburgh, another great play right there coming in. You see 2 different ways to do it. Remember, Colton Wong had the barehanded play. Neal Walker uses the glove, but the glove's coming up, the ball's coming out of the glove and into the hand while he's taking his next step. There's no hesitation. Great quick throw to get Wong by a step.
Hey, Neal Walker's got a connection to Roberto Clemente. His dad, Tom, was a ball player. Had a little bit of time in the majors, but was a winter ball teammate of Roberto Clemente down in Puerto Rico, and was among those ball players who were helping Clemente load the supplies onto the plane that night, December 31st, 1972. But Clemente wouldn't let those other ball players come with him. He told them, go enjoy New Year's and I'll be back soon. So Tom Walker did not get on that plane that crashed moments later. So Neal Walker speaking for many reasons, because of his dad's connection, because he grew up in Pittsburgh, because he now plays for the Pirates, about kind of the place in his life that Roberto Clemente has had.
And they got the unis on tonight too.
Yeah, the retro early 70s Pirates unis.
Love the hats.
Two to Peralta. On the appeal, he didn't go.
Well, you talk about a first baseman who's not normally a first baseman. Look how far Sean Rodriguez is from first base. I mean, he's playing basically where a second baseman play a left-handed pull hitter.
Can he win that race?
Well, he tried it earlier, and that's the only issue you have is the ball that was hit to Jordy Mercer that he came in throwing. you know, he was getting to the bag when the ball was already out of Jordy's hands, and you wonder if that would cause some bad timing on his part to stretch and pick balls out of the dirt.
Kind of want to make you see just a ground ball here, just to see what would happen.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. If it's a ball to his right, he can't take a stutter step toward second base and expect to get back to first. I mean, you have to really trust your second baseman and trust his range and trust your pitcher that he'll cover for you if you do go to your right to get a ball.
Fouled off.
Well, I think one of the issues, the pitcher, you got to know this.
Yeah.
Right, because there are balls that'll be hit to the right side or the left side where you don't break because you know, hey, the first baseman's got it. He's nowhere near the bag.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you think, oh, it's a routine grounder to second. There's your first baseman standing there. No worry on this one.
Deep to left field. And Johnny Peralta has hit it out. His 13th home run of the season to tie the game.
You see Cervelli trying to go down and away, and that ball drifts over the center of the plate. And Johnny Peralta just missed one his first at bat, and that one there he got a good portion of that one down.
Second home run that he's hit off Liriano this season, 13th on the year. Leads National League shortstops, leads all Cardinals in home runs. Hayward pops one foul out of play. One of 6 Cardinals heading to the All-Star game. The Pirates will send 4. The team with the best record in baseball will be well represented, although Matt Holliday will not play in the game because of injury. Rodriguez will make the play himself. And the inning is over. The home run by Peralta ties it. Andrew McCutchen will lead it off for the Pirates when we come back. On ESPN is presented by Taco Bell. A nice night right now here in Pittsburgh. A 2-2 tie between the Cardinals and the Pirates. Andrew McCutchen will lead it off. McCutchen called out on strikes in the first inning. On an 18-game hitting streak right now is McCutchen, but he extended with that 14th inning home run last night. Let's take you back to Curt Schilling's book on Andrew McCutchen. Show.
Well, he will take pitches, not just his first at bat, but his first couple of bats. Sees the ball good early, always hunting the fastball. Got to stay out of the middle of the zone. I don't care how hard you throw, you can't throw the ball by him. Look at the swings and misses. He rarely will swing and miss at soft stuff down in the zone. He's done that back-to-back pitches now. There's a couple ways to set him up, but you don't repeat pitches to him from a location perspective or pitch selection perspective, I don't think. Just doesn't with 2 strikes, he doesn't try and do too much. You know, I don't know what it's like for a guy that has confidence in his hands and his power, because he doesn't have to square up a ball to hit a ball out. But there never seems to be any urgency. So hard to get him out in the strike zone.
And Cooney strikes him out for the second time tonight.
Nice. First at bat, he punched him out on a slider in that was kind of up. This is a good pitch. And for you young pitchers, watch the glove. It went up. He missed, but he missed in. He missed to the side of plate he was trying to throw to, because they were going there for a reason. My guess is that Yadi's seen something, because that's the second pitch, kind of from a location perspective, that's been in that spot. He's missed them both.
Here's Marte. Just a few days with discomfort in his left side. The Pirates never went so far as to say it was a strained this or an oblique or anything like that. Just discomfort in his left side. Returned last night. 24 doubles, 13 homers, 16 steals. As he chases in the dirt. Cooney's really got some of these Pirate hitters off balance.
His changeup right now is real effective.
Two. Missed his location, but he still strikes out Marte. Back-to-back strikeouts of the 3-4 hitters in the Pirates lineup. Let's take a look at tonight's home field advantage, brought to you by Quicken Loans. And both of these teams have been outstanding at home in recent years. Since the beginning of 2013, the Cardinals have the most wins at home in the majors, and the Pirates are second. And as we mentioned, when this team is good, Crucky, this place can really rock.
Well, it is. They compared last night's game to the 2 years ago, the wild card game against the Cincinnati Reds that the Pirates won, as far as the noise level goes. I just can't imagine what this place will be like if they ever get to a league championship series and into a World Series. You know, the opportunity's there this year for them to do it.
Will they go out, make a move at the deadline, maybe try to pick up a bat? They've got outstanding pitching, as we mentioned, second to best ERA in baseball, behind only St. Louis. Jung Ho Kang is the batter. First-year player from South Korea, signed a 4-year, $11 million deal. The expectation was he would be a utility player. Second, short, third, but Josh Harrison's on the DL right now for 7 weeks with a torn ligament in his thumb. So Kang has gone from a utility guy that Clint Hurdle can spot in there, different spots, favorable matchups, to a guy playing every day at an unfamiliar position by and large. Boy, Clint Hurdle had some nice things to say about him earlier today.
Yeah, and you wonder when Harrison comes back, he moves to third base. You wonder if Kang might be a guy that they say, you know what, let's give him a shot at first base, because they're not getting a lot of production out of that position.
But also, if Polanco continues to struggle, Harrison's proven he can play in the outfield too. You can put him just about anywhere.
Yep. Yeah, that's the way the Pirates have to do it. They have to have versatility, and they have to have multiple players in their everyday lineup who can be versatile.
And Kang will take the walk. Let's take a look at the All-Star calendar. Hard to believe we're at that point of the baseball season already. Tomorrow, it'll be the Gillette Home Run Derby presented by Head & Shoulders beginning at 8 o'clock right here on ESPN, the All-Star Game Red Carpet Show. Tuesday afternoon on MLB Network, and then the All-Star Game itself from Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati on Fox. A.J. Burnett will be there, 38 years of age, one of the oldest first-time All-Stars ever. And we will speak with A.J. Burnett in next half inning. Talk to him about his season, his return to Pittsburgh, and his trip to the All-Star Game tomorrow. So he'll head to Cincinnati for the game on Tuesday night. He's had a big role on the field, pitching for these Pirates. And also probably mentoring some of these young pitchers. They've got some very talented young pitchers led by another All-Star, Garrett Cole, a 13-game winner already. That's a big number before the All-Star game.
I think Garrett Cole, once he came up with that slider changeup, his minor league numbers, even though he threw 97, 98, he wasn't a big strikeout guy in the minor leagues. And he gets to the big leagues, and all of a sudden that slider starts to rear its ugly head on these hitters. He can put people away.
Runner goes. Molina throws from his knees and got it. Gong is thrown out to end the inning. Yadier Molina firing a strike. Michael Walker and the rest of the Cardinals, they've seen that before, but they love it. 7-time Gold Glove Award winner, and the inning is over. In 1999, 162 career wins with 4 different teams. This year, a sparkling ERA of 2.11 and his first trip to the All-Star game. 38 years of age, one of the oldest first-time All-Stars in Major League history. And joining us now live from the Pirates dugout, AJ, Dan Shulman, John Crucker, Schilling. Thanks very much for joining us. And what does it mean to you to be heading to the All-Star game for the first time?
Well, I mean, you guys know, we all dream about it as kids, and it's cool. I'm very excited. We mentioned it earlier, getting to be around some other players, some guys you're curious about, some great ball players. But I'm really excited for my boys. I got AJ's 14 and Ashton's 11, and for them to be able to enjoy this for my last season and actually get out there for the home run derby and just be a part of all that, it's going to be really neat for them.
AJ, you're having an unbelievable year. Like you said, first-time All-Star. Why would you retire? You're still dominating.
Yeah, but the day after hurts a lot. It's that time, man. It's that time. My wife's done a lot of things. She's hadn't had a summer to herself in a long, long time, and my boys at age now where I started coaching them basketball in the wintertime, and they want me to start coaching other things too. And like I mentioned, the body tells you. I believe I could still pitch for a couple more years, but I want to be able to walk away and then actually be active around my kids for a couple years before I start hobbling.
Hey, AJ, congratulations again. Excited for you. But 17 years, and as a power pitcher, as a guy who's been around, if you could go back and talk to your rookie self, what would be the one thing you'd either A, warn yourself against or tell yourself about?
Well, I would probably tell myself to save my bullets. You know, I was stubborn about that. You know, I threw hard, and I wanted to make sure everybody knew I threw hard. So even you know, the days in between, you know, I was airing it out. You know, we didn't have a lot of shoulder stuff back then. I didn't ice or anything until after '03 when I had my Tommy John. So I would take care of my arm a little better, my body a little better. You know, I got so much awareness now of what I need to do and when I need to do it, as far as working out, as far as taking care of myself. But I think that's been a big part of my durability.
Yadier Molina called out on strikes. AJ, you had some options heading into this season. Why did you come back to Pittsburgh after having been here in 13 and 12?
No brainer, man. These guys in this dugout, they're special to me. You know, I went to Philly to make some things work for home, be closer to the family, and it was great. You know, I was home every other day as long as I wasn't pitching and throwing a bullpen. Ended up not having the year I wanted to have. So I'm not the type of person that can go out like that, and I wanted to come back to a team where I respected, a team where I felt like I belonged, and the fact that that these fans accepted me the way they did, and from day one in 2012, not a lot of players get to go back to where they're happiest and end it where they're happiest, and I'm honored to be able to do that.
Was part of the reason why you're happiest he's that guy up in center field for you?
He's pretty good, huh?
he's going to be good someday when he figures it out, yeah.
I mean, yeah, right? He's special, man. He's a very humble person. You know, I actually have a very good relationship with Kutch, and he's one of the best to be around as far as being a humble superstar. But I mean, we got everybody in this place is, you know, I've been lucky in my career to be on some great teams with some great players, and I haven't really came across anybody that I've had problems with or has been a problem person. But there's nobody in here like that. They're all for each other, and it doesn't seem like it matters what they do as long as, you know, somebody on the team is doing just as well.
There's a high fly ball to the aforementioned McCutchen, and he'll lope in to make the catch. 2 down.
AJ, I always like to ask guys who've been around a while. You had one Hall of Fame vote to give to one teammate you played with. Who would it be? Best player you ever played with?
Man, well, that's Jeep, hands down. You know, Derek was the best I've ever seen, just as far as day in and day out. But a lot of those guys in that New York locker room was that way. You know, I could throw up a lot of names. I still keep in touch with Al. You know, he's a good friend of mine, and I'd give to G just all around the person he is, professional that he is, and you know, the way that he jumps in that first pitch of the game every time. That's awesome. I love it.
Do you think if somebody asked you that question in 10, 15 years, Garrett Cole's name might be on that list?
Yeah, well, where is that guy? I got to go yell at him. He ain't out here. He's probably in there listening. That's
right.
Why.
How high is his ceiling?
You know what? It's up there. I don't even think he knows yet. He's got a lot of tools that a lot of us wish we had our first couple of years. You know, as far as being able to, you know, he does a good job of slowing the game up right now for a young kid. It took me a long time to figure out because this game can get on you quick. But just the fact that he's a gamer, and you know, the thing I notice about him the most is just he wants to be the best, you know, and you want to surround yourself with guys like that.
Hey, AJ, enjoy the All-Star festivities. Congratulations.
Thanks for having me.
All right, AJ Burnett going to Cincinnati. So to the bottom of the fourth, between innings, our Buster Olney with Cardinals manager Mike Matheny.
Like a home run for Johnny Peralta. How would you describe his first half?
It's been a terrific first half. I mean, ever since we got him, he's just such a consistent player. You know what you're going to get every day. He's obviously putting on a display of power this year. Just the at-bats he's putting together. And defensively as consistent as anybody you could ask.
You said before the game you feel like Tim Cooney's gotten better with each start. What have you seen in him tonight?
Yeah, same thing. You know, he's throwing his breaking ball and his changeup in tough counts, keeping him off balance. And he's got a sneaky fastball when he locates it. And he's had a couple good pitches there with 2 strikes in the inside part to the righties.
Mike, thanks.
Tim Cooney will face Francisco Cervelli, Sean Rodriguez, and Gregory Polanco, the 6, 7, 8 hitters in the Pirates lineup as they come to bat here in the bottom of the fourth. Cervelli tripled and scored his first time up. Second triple of the season. Chases the breaking ball, and it's 0-2.
Well, you can watch a guy like this who throws 90 to 92. Then you watch a guy like Mark Burley who throws 85. And Burley consistently more effective for one reason. He has a little bit better fastball command. And I think once this kid gets command of that fastball to both sides of the plate, all the other stuff's going to add up.
And he gets the call on the inside corner for his 4th strikeout of the night.
Good pitch. Great pitch. And Dan, one of the things that happens as a pitcher, when you start to pitch around the strike zone consistently, you'll get pitches that aren't necessarily right on the corner, just off. And your catcher has such a big part in that. That's a great frame by Yadi.
And you see, and he's frozen a few guys on the inner part of the plate. When you're a guy who doesn't throw hard, naturally you think, well, he's not going to pitch in. He has to stay away. And when they do come in like that, it gives you the effect that it's far more inside than what it normally is.
The biggest issue with a guy like this pitching in is that you have to make the pitch on the pitch you're making. Like, you don't get 2 or 3 shots at it. You go away, change up away, curveball, and then boom, you're trying to freeze him and make that pitch, and you get 1 shot to be good to perfect at it. But he's got the makeup stuff.
Might just be holding a spot till Jaime Garcia comes back.
Well, but again, this is a Cardinal guy, right? I mean, this is a guy who could pitch in the big leagues right now. He's good, could be very, very good.
Rodriguez shoots it into the right field corner right below us. Hayward will retrieve it on his way to second, and in there standing up is Rodriguez.
Well, to me, his biggest issue is pulling the ball to the middle of the plate or pushing it to the middle of the plate from the corner. Good at bat. Didn't try and do too much, Gucky.
No, and you know, he hooks one way foul, pulled, and then he goes the other way, and that's a guy that's on top of things right there. But you know, Sean Rodriguez is a guy that's always been, he has to play 120% every time he's out there, and that's what the Pirates got him for.
So here's Polanco, intentionally walked his first time up tonight. A young outfielder with all kinds of promise, all kinds of hype when he came up. He has been swinging the bat better lately, but still just 231, 3 homers on the season. Then Hurdle talking about how he's still learning things at the major league level. They've kind of refined his throwing motion, shortened that up a little bit. They like his base stealing ability, but can he do enough damage with the bat, Crucky, to still have a regular job in a couple of months?
Well, Clint Hurdle told us that, you know, the big thing when he gets in trouble is he chases the ball, which means he lunges. He tries to get to the pitch before the pitch gets to him. And, you know, it's like, you know, Clint and I were talking about in our meeting with him. You know, the hardest thing to do is convince someone that the ball will get there. If it doesn't, it's a ball, and no one's ever seen a ball stop halfway there.
And watch
he has to be more patient.
Sorry, he's going. I think he's going curveball again here. I think they're right now. Yadi's using first sign after 2. Now, if he gives him the roll, so you got 1, 3, 2, 1 fastball in. If he's using the first sign after 2. Nope. He mixed it. He saw that he kind of took his fingers and went like this. He rolled his finger out in front of him. Yeah, and Mike's talking about, hey, second baseman. Yep. How quick could you pick it up, John?
What, from second?
Yeah.
I couldn't see that far. and I did it once in the minor leagues and gave the location, and apparently I didn't get it right. And the guy almost got hit in the head, so I thought that's.
Yeah. Well, I know hitters, either they'll want it or they'll want no part of it, because if you make a mistake,
you get somebody hurt.
You get somebody killed.
Yeah, that happened to me once in the big leagues. I got, the curveball from a lefty, threw a fastball up and in. Ouch. It missed me.
You can see.
That was the last time I ever looked at that guy for a sign again.
You can see they're all concerned about it. You saw Mike and Yadi both telling the pitcher, Mike telling Yadi, Yadi telling the pitcher.
So did they see something Rodriguez was doing, or are they just assuming it's being done?
Well, a lot of times you'll see the runner set up, he'll put his left hand on his leg or his right hand on his leg, or he'll lead one way or the other for location. Or he'll pick up a hand that touches helmet with his right hand or his left hand with it for fastball breaking ball.
And a lot of times when you're out there at second, you can just have different mannerisms because someone's watching you.
Yeah.
They're watching you. When you're on second base, either the catcher or someone on the bench is watching you, and it'll just mess with the pitcher.
And I know guys that really messed up.
Stopped by Molina. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
But you saw before that pitch, he kind of took his right hand, Rodriguez, and grabbed his helmet. Yeah. That might be, hey, if I go to my helmet, it's hard. If I go to my belt, it's soft.
Yeah, or it's I got the signs.
That's Matheny telling him to mix it. He's telling Yadi, mix it up, whatever you want to do, sequence-wise here. Fastball away, slider. Yep. So it's slider, curveball. After 1 or after 2. Yep. So it's first sign after 2.
So the first sign that he puts down after he puts
the
down
first
2 fingers.
After the first 2
signs.
Yep.
So it's
no. After the first number 2.
Number 2 down.
Whatever sign follows that.
Okay.
And then you use after 1, and then you'll use first sign. You'll use second sign.
You switch from pitch to pitch?
You can switch from pitch to pitch. Some guys will do it by count. See, he's telling him.
Just think what you could teach your little league guys, Dad. Here's how you steal signs, kid.
Base hit into right field. Rodriguez on his way home. Hayward's throw not in time. The run scores, and into second goes Polanco.
And great base running by Polanco. Knowing that Hayward has a good arm, and you wanted to see if Mark Reynolds will cut it to try to get you out and let Rodriguez score. But I think the pitch before, when Polanco took that breaking ball, the way he took it, it looked like he was seeing the ball well off of Cooney's hand. And right there's another breaking ball. He drives it past Colton Wong. And you like watch Polanco, he just kept running. And if you cut it, if Mark Reynolds cuts it, you cut it. But the run's going to score. And, the Pirates knowing that Liriano, even though he got a base hit his last at bat, more than likely he's not going to go 2 for 2. But, they had to take a chance right there.
Liriano guessed wrong out in front, and it's 0-1. He had a 2-run single his last time.
But you see the difference.
That's the equalizer.
Yeah, great equalizer.
Well, the other thing, too, Dan, when you heard me talk about swing and miss pitching, that's a ground ball. He hit a ground ball. It wasn't hard hit. It was decently hit. But if your defense, your second baseman, 2 feet to his left, there's 2 outs.
Let's take a look at Liriano's hit his last time up. He hit it pretty well.
I act like he didn't know what he was doing.
Well, yeah, down and away fastball that he threw down and crushed it.
Well, and that's the thing with most pitchers, they'll bail a little bit. And when he threw that pitch, the third base coach is excited. But when you throw that pitch in and you're bailing, it's it's right in your wheelhouse.
And he chases for out number 2. Activity now in the Cardinals pen. Right-hander Carlos Villanueva, who remarkably in a 14-inning game did not pitch last night. He pitched earlier in the series, was not available, but he can give the Cardinals some distance. 2-3 innings. He's up right now. A crazy game last night where the Pirates came back from a deficit 3 times, twice in extra innings, and a run down in the bottom of the 14th. Andrew McCutchen with a 2-run home run off Nick Greenwood, who had just been called up, and the Pirates won the game. The final score was 6-5. The Pirates closing to within 3.5 games of the Cardinals. On the 29th of June, the Pirates were 9 back. 2 weeks later, they're 3.5 back. A bouncer to Wall, and the inning is over. But Polanco drives in Rodriguez. The Pirates have the lead back. Rodriguez scoring the go-ahead run on a base hit by Gregory Polanco, when the Pirates looking to take 3 out of 4 in this series. Have a 3-2 lead over the Cardinals as St. Louis comes up in the top of the 5th inning. Peter Borges will lead it off for St. Louis. Shows bunt, takes down an in-ball 1. Had a base hit his first time up. Tim Cooney is still out in the on-deck circle. Villanueva was up in the path. But Cooney got out of the inning. And a ground ball to short. Mercer up with it on to first, just in time ahead of the speedy Borges.
Little things separate guys, and it's attention to detail. Watch Francisco Liriano. This is a right-hander, and he's pitching from that side of the rubber. Everything he does is from this side of the rubber, and a lot of guys do it because they like to throw on a straight line. Now you got a lefty, and he's on the left side of the rubber, and he gets his ball breaking away. It's a very cool little dynamic, but you have to be comfortable making moves and adjustments. And you've seen he's got multiple deliveries from the stretch, and he clearly is okay moving around on the rubber. And you hear other guys say, I have to be right here, or I have to do, A, B, or C. He clearly can do what he needs to do to adjust.
A quick 0-2 on Cooney. Hit a fly ball to right field his first time up. Liriano looking down at his landing spot as if he wasn't happy with where he landed or how he landed. We've had very light rain at times here tonight, sprinkling just a little bit right now. Something like this cause any issue for pitcher Schill on the mound?
No. Well, shouldn't.
And another play for Mercer. He runs pretty well too, but 2 down. Let's bring in Buster Olney.
And guys, one interesting thing about Liriano at age 32 is that he's had different stages in his career. Early on, he was a guy who crushed hitters with that incredible slider, struck out more than a batter per inning, then struggled in the middle of his career. And he told me yesterday that in 2013, Russell Martin sat down with him when Martin was with the Pirates and showed him with video how to read hitters and their swings and their body language. And now Francisco Cervelli, their catcher, tells me he's never worked with a pitcher better at that other than Andy Pettitte than Liriano is now.
So she'll tell us about reading swings.
Well, I think I played with a guy who was as good as anybody ever with Pedro. Pedro could read hitters, and not just swings, but there were certain things that I could never do it. The one thing that I tell young pitchers, though, you can tell a hitter. If you've never seen a hitter, watch him swing in the on-deck circle. Hitters will tell you where they like the ball when they're practicing their swings in the on-deck circle. But Pedro, and I've heard this about Francisco, they can adjust on the fly to things they see during the game, and that's another level.
Well, you would think with the advanced understanding that he apparently has now, and with the raw stuff, nothing's holding him back, right?
No, I don't think so. I think, he's healthy. He's healthy. He's got always had the slider. It took a while to come back, I think, after the surgery. He's added a changeup now that makes him, to me, again, the reason I think you worry about these guys in October facing them with him and Cole.
And a swing and a miss. He strikes out Matt Carpenter. 7 in a row now set down by the Pirates lefty. On ESPN, presented by Taco Bell, with the Pirates leading the Cardinals 3-2, trying to take 3 out of 4. And it's a constant chant of "Let's go Bucks" you hear around the ballpark here in Pittsburgh. 2-3-4 coming up, beginning with Neal Walker. Sends a fly ball to left field with ranging to his right Grichuk for out number 1. Now McCutchen.
Young Mr. Kuhn, he's been about as good as with any other hitter as he's been with Andrew McCutchen. There you see the changeup down and away, a breaking ball that McCutchen doesn't offer to, and then I don't know if that's a slider or cutter, but it's in, and then he gets McCutchen to chase pitches. There's a good curveball that he swung through, and then he elevates the fastball to throw it by McCutchen. He has pitched about as good as he's pitched better to McCutchen than he has with any other hitter in this Pirates lineup so far. And Kurt, when you're a young pitcher, is that where you go in?
Yeah.
Like, okay, how am I going to get McCutchen the night before? He's probably not sleeping. He watches the 14th inning home run. All right, how am I going to get this guy out?
It depends on who I think young pitchers look at guys like him as a way to, if I want to be good, if I want to succeed, this is a guy I need to get. This is a guy I need to beat. Almost like facing a Kershaw. This is you got to match up and beat him.
3-0 the count on McCutchen. The shift is on with 3 infielders on the left side of second base.
Well, 3-0, they better worry about how deep the outfielder's going to play. He's got to be swinging here.
He is, and he fouls it off 3-1.
See, now you're into your third at bat. He's seen everything, and so again, if you're working more than 1 or 2 pitches, great. But this is probably not a situation where you want to throw a ball knees up around the strike zone.
Wong back on to the other side of second base, his normal side to make the play. 2 down. Follow your favorite team and players all season with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. Get MLB.com at bat now. Slug your way to the Home Run Derby crown and master the free award-winning game that millions are playing. Download MLB.com Home Run Derby free on the App Store and Google Play. 2 down, nobody on. The Pirates batting in the bottom of the 5th, leading 3-2. This is Starling Marte, who is 0 for 2. A fly ball and a strikeout. Broken bat fly ball into left center field. Borges there, and the Pirates go in order. End of 5, 3-2 Pittsburgh. In 2010 to serve the boys and girls of the North Allegheny area. The Junior League division, ages 13 and 14, were the Pennsylvania State champions last year, the first and only Little League organization in the North Allegheny area to offer Little League softball. And here they are earlier before the game, meeting Clint Hurdle. Having a good time down in the dugout before the game, getting some selfies with All-Star Mark Melanson. And a live shot of them enjoying the ball game here in the ballpark tonight. It is good to be a kid.
Or us.
Yeah.
Same thing.
it's good to never have to grow up.
Right.
That's the most amazing thing about sport.
Yeah.
54 years old, and I'm like act like a 3-year-old.
No
and
different.
He's worse.
Well,
He's
no,
worse.
He's
no,
worse.
Come on. Come on now. Not even close.
There's Colton Wong.
But you don't have, in the clubhouse, you just,
Anything goes.
everything goes.
And sadly, sometimes we take that a little too far in public, that anything goes.
Daily. They stand with the pause. There's nowhere good this can go.
And he's just waiting. He's, you know what? Let them get themselves fired. I'm not going to help.
That's right. Get it out of your system, and we move on.
We know you're here.
And we move on.
Colton Wong's up.
And a 3-pitch strikeout. Liriano with strikeout number 5. You saw a note last inning that batters make contact. Elias telling us that batters make contact on only 66.3% of their swings. That's the second lowest rate against any qualifying pitcher, meaning enough innings to qualify for the ERA title in baseball. Only Chris Sale has batters make less contact against him than Francisco Liriano.
And I think the reason that's even more of an amazing number is they're both lefties in a league where they face a ton of righties.
Another lefty's third, Clayton Kershaw.
They have all the advantages. Rockies. And I think one of the reasons why is that they so deceptive in their deliveries. You don't get Crucky, you don't get to see it till the last minute.
No, and you're not used to lefty on lefty, that ball running away from you. Slider, unhittable. Here's a guy he needs to be careful with, though. And he was.
Walks Peralta on 4 pitches. Well, we mentioned Clayton Kershaw. Schiller, there's some similarities between these two?
Well, when pitchers or hitters talk about not seeing the ball well or not hitting, John Papelbon was another guy. But guys hide the ball well, and by that I mean this. When they get to this spot right here, there is no baseball. Now, hitters are looking right up in here in that throwing slot, Johnny, and the ball doesn't get up there until late, and then it jumps on you and it's live, and that's called hiding. And some guys can do it, some guys are terrible at it.
Yeah, we like the guys who showed it to you for a long time. Those ones that hide it, it's a very uncomfortable at bat because you don't pick it up till late.
A strike to Jason Hayward.
And, we've seen Liriano tonight get upwards of 96 miles an hour. When you're hiding it and it's 96, virtually impossible.
One of the more amazing things I heard, Dan, was some guys that I faced, Hall of Fame caliber hitters, who talked about the fact that guys that threw the curveball with their finger off the ball or threw a split, they could see it up in the slot.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And so they didn't swing unless there was 2 strikes.
You can see the dot on a slider.
Well, and that's a later, but guys could see it up before it came out of your hand. Crucky, talk to me about, as a hitter, looking at this angle.
Well, here's what you don't see is he has a bigger shoulder turn. He does strike straight towards you, but watch his landing foot, and the arm is still behind.
Still no baseball.
Still no baseball to be seen. And what I tried to do, what I tell kids is, you look at the emblem on his hat, the decal on his hat, and then try to adjust to the.
Mercer will feed Walker, and they will force the lead runner.
But you try to focus on the P on Liriano's hat, and then you just shift your eyes to where his release point is. But when the release point comes that late, that's what takes it from seeing it well out of his hand to not seeing it until later because it's so quick.
And we're talking about fractions of a second.
Yeah. I mean, you'd love to be able to sit there and say, maybe I'll swing, maybe I won't. Well, I don't know if that's a strike yet. Let me see it a little longer.
Well, I love the way you talk about that, too, because talking to young hitters, and by young, you mean little league kids, and there's a lot of things you're not sure of what to do. There are some fundamentals that will never, ever change, and they never do change. And guys that are good
They do them consistently. But if you think about what Johnny's saying, where the looking at the P and then looking at the hand, there's a window of space where you look, and you don't ever look away from that as a hitter.
I remember certain pitchers, or the Giants, I used to look at his feet because he'd put dirt on them and kick it up with dust sometime. I wanted to see when he was doing it. Mike Krukow. My cuz.
Crucky and Krukow.
Yeah, he would do that. He'd you know, act like he was tying his shoe and he'd put some dirt on his foot. When he'd lift his foot up, you see a little puff of smoke come up and you're like, what?
So I guess a distraction?
Yeah, so I mean, there was times, I swear, and I've told him this, that he's throwing a pitch where I'm actually looking at his feet to see what he's doing.
It's a foul ball.
So Crucky's talking about that hand. Watch the P.
Yeah,
looking
as soon
at the
as
hat.
he turns, you pick up the P, and then you just try to shift your eyes to the right to see the release point.
Right here.
But it's not there, and then it seems wider than it should. You know, most guys are, you know, about 8 to 12 inches from their hat. He's more out. He's still throwing overhand, but it's about, you know, 1.5 feet away from his head.
Now take that whole theory and look at Randy Johnson at 6'11" with that wingspan, and his arm was 6 feet from his head when he let go of the ball, and it felt like hitters always talked about the fact that it felt like he was letting go of the ball and kind of brushing it on the chin.
You just shuddered, Crucky. That was an actual shudder.
I've broken out in hives before thinking about that man. Yeah.
The 1-2 to Molina.
That was one of my funniest experiences at an All-Star game. Was we're sitting there and all these lefties. I hope they put Randy, and I hope that I'm like, no, you don't. None of you want that. Yeah, man. Well, I want a piece of him. Well, you can get all the pieces you want. You can have my piece too.
Inning over on the ground out by Molina to the bottom of the 6th. 3-2 Pirates. Back to PNC Park. Slowly zooming in on our location as we sit here in the first row above the Clemente Wall. Down the right field line. John Kruk, Kurt Schilling, Dan Schulman. Oh, here we are. Ryan snuck up on us. And we kind of just took it. We didn't really ask for permission. But Jung Ho Gong received a shipment of food from
care package.
A care package from South Korea today. And these have been described to us. You know what bugles are? You've had bugles. Everybody knows what bugles are.
You're asking us.
Is it a snack food?
I'm sorry.
Do you understand what air is?
Somebody tweeted at me and said, how much does Crucky eat during a game? And I said, whatever's put in front of him, basically. So,
just
want some bugles from Korea?
Korean bugles.
Bugles are an international thing. They're in
my bad.
Yeah, absolutely in the, maybe not in Canada.
No, yes, in Canada.
But they're a top 10 Hall of Fame type snack, and they're bugles.
So Jung Ho, as you come to the plate,
what do you got?
If
Fresh?
some of the bugles are missing, it's our fault.
Very fresh.
Nice.
Have a sweet taste to them.
No,
a little different.
Oh, look, honey.
No,
a picture of honey.
I like the fact that Crucky couldn't figure out how to open the bag. Yeah, that was fun.
That was 90 seconds of the 2-minute break.
I tell you what, I struggle with the cheese nip. So,
well, for about 2 seconds before you just ripped the box open, looked like a velociraptor.
Right-hander Carlos Villanueva will take over for Tim Cooney here in the bottom of the 6th inning. Cooney goes 5 innings and he gives up 3 runs, leaves trailing 3-2.
Something I wondered since I saw my first Japanese Asian hitter from a batting stance perspective, the highlight kick, Crucky. Why over there is it so prominent? And they're all, I mean, I know Sadahara had a big impact, but that doesn't work here. Not consistently anyway. And it seems like they all come over with it.
Ichiro did pretty good
with
it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the exception rather than the rule.
But Ichiro's so unorthodox with everything he does.
Ground ball right at Peralta, 1 down. The biggest stars in sports and entertainment come together to celebrate an unforgettable year in sports. The ESPYs presented by Capital One with host Joel McHale this Wednesday at 8 Eastern on ABC. Jeff Locke is up in the bullpen right now for the Pirates. Locke is starting pitcher for Pittsburgh.
They have 3 or 4 days off before they have to play again, and he can pitch today and won't have to pitch again until probably next Sunday or Monday or whenever.
And again, they had a 14-inning game last night.
And this is also a day when you'll see some guys throwing some bullpens before the break, too. I'm assuming he's up for the game, but this is when some starters that are going to have 4 days off will throw a bullpen.
No time off for these guys. They're going to Cincinnati. Garrett Cole on the left, A.J. Burnett on the right. Michael Wacha's an all-star. And another ground ball to short. Carlos Martinez is headed to the All-Star game. He was the winner of kind of the last man in, the Final 5 for the National League.
Good.
Having a terrific season.
He is. I said it the other time we had him. I think he's going to win a Cy Young or two.
Well, if you're a Cardinal fan, you're watching him develop in ways that are winning you games in the big leagues now, and that's going to be fun.
Well, between Martinez, Wacha, and Garrett Cole on the other side, you got 3 of the best young pitchers in all of baseball.
Well, the game. I mean, you look around the game. Sonny Gray, you've got Matt Harvey, Syndergaard. I mean, there are young studs everywhere. DeGrom, Kluber. Just a ton of, and they're all power guys.
A little number up the first baseline, and a good play there by Villanueva to retire Rodriguez as the Pirates go in order in the bottom of the 6th. Rep my team. Both Pirates and Cardinals fans responding in droves tonight. Thanks for sending in all your pictures tonight. We're here at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, the last game before the All-Star break. Two of the top 3 records in all of baseball. The Cardinals have the best record. The Pirates are third. The Kansas City Royals have the second best record. And let's not forget, by the way, about the Chicago Cubs, who won again today, beat the White Sox. The Cubs are 47-40. And they're in possession of the second wild card spot right now. So at the moment, 3 National League Central teams occupying playoff positions.
And that wouldn't surprise me as the season progresses that it stays that way.
Well, that's what's going to, I think, throw a huge wrench into the trading deadline. Is I think you're going to have a ton of buyers and very few sellers.
Yep. And I still think if the Mets get a bat, they, with that young pitching, they have a chance of sticking around in this thing.
But what price do you pay for 9 extra innings? If you're playing for a wild card,
right?
You know how much? Everybody talking about Cole Hamels. If you're going to pay for Cole Hamels, you're going to have him for a couple of years. Are you paying for him to win a division? Or are you paying for him to get a shot?
Activity in the Cardinals pen. Left-hander Randy Chode, right-hander Seth Manning. It's a good point. Say you're the Cubs, you're probably playing just to get in as a wild card, but you could be, as Reynolds strikes out, other teams that may not necessarily be as good as the Cubs but might have a better chance of winning the division might have more incentive to go out and make a trade because they can actually bypass the
well,
wild
you're going
card.
to. I think we started to see the deadline change. And I think a lot of GMs now enter the deadline valuing prospects the way Theo Epstein values them. There's a huge value and controlled players. Cole Hamels, I think, is going to get far more return than Cueto.
Randall Grichuk will line one into left field, a base hit. Time now for our high strength performance, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
Well, watch the fastball. Good miss. Command-wise, he hasn't been strong with his fastball, but I don't think that's all that odd. He's always been a guy who's kind of a wild thrower, fastball-wise. But his other stuff is so good. His secondary stuff is dominating. It's wipeout. The nights where he goes and punches out 14 and gives up 2 hits over 8 are the nights he has his fastball command to add with those other ones. Those 3 walks are the reason he's probably going to have trouble getting into the 8th.
Over 100 pitches already as he misses outside of ball 1 to Peter Borges.
You wonder here with the Cardinals with the bullpen up if they might get some action going with Grichuk on first, who can run, and Borges, who can also run.
This is also where I think Liriano gets in a little bit of trouble. He's got at least 3, if not 4, deliveries from the stretch, and all of them are different, and all of them are timing different. And I think that creates a challenge for his pitches to be consistent.
Tommy Pham has emerged in the on-deck circle in the pitcher spot.
And if you're wondering, what I mean is watch his front foot. Watch the pickup on Liriano's front foot. Sometimes it's a quick step. Other times he picks it above his knee. There you go.
And that's the key, though. He went quick, and it looked like it froze Borges. Because you're looking at a 1-1 pitch. It's, you saw a quick pitch.
So it comes no higher. Yeah, it comes no higher than a couple inches off the dirt. And there are now, and I like the changeup with a quick pitch, but now watch the front foot again. And usually lefties will do that don't feel comfortable. They have a good move. That's why I think you get in trouble. It's just so hard to consistently feel command when you rush. So this is the same delivery he just used with his changeup. Nothing more 2 inches off. That ball bounces. That's not even the competitive pitch for him.
Tying run at first with a 1 out here in the 7th inning and a 2-2 count on Peter Borges.
right there. Good pitch, but you saw the leg kick in front. Watch the foot come up. You saw it 2 inches off the ground. There's picked up behind the knee.
And that's why the command was so much better. But I think if you're Mike Matheny right now, you send him. You got to trust the board just going to put it in place somewhere.
And I think they're going to try and force some throwovers right here.
But if
he's got a huge
lead.
If
you're Grichuk, you can't get picked off.
Nope.
Can't.
Not going, and it's fouled back.
Wow. I'm really surprised that they're not.
That's why we're sitting out here.
Is this out of respect for Liriano's ability to get swings and misses?
Yes, but you also have to, put trust in your hitter that if he throws a slider down and in, you can lay off of it. Maybe Borges is a guy that with 2 strikes he gets overly aggressive.
But you have to focus.
Mike Matheny knows that better than us.
You have to focus on making the pitch here, not the base run. And that's why. That move right there is why he has those. He does not have a good move to first. So he's got to various times to keep his base runners from getting jumps. And just really kind of handcuffs your catcher. He's going to go slider down around his feet right here.
And he bounced it in for ball 4, pushing the tying run to second base.
I don't see him getting much more. And this was the one where as a pitcher you try and make the catcher go back home. Because you know what this meeting's about.
Yeah, this is I'm wasting time till someone gets warmed up.
And this is, hey, just turn around and go back. Let's go. Not allowed. Coach told me to stand right here.
Here comes Clint Hurdle.
So it looks like we will see Jared Hughes. We'll wait for Hurdle to make it official. Liriano will leave with a lead, and will lead to a very nice ovation here in Pittsburgh. With 2 men on for the Cardinals here in the 7th. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN with the Cardinals batting in the top of the 7th and trailing 3-2. 2 great teams and division rivals, 2 of the 3 best records in baseball. The Gillette Home Run Derby, presented by Head & Shoulders, featuring the game's most feared home run hitters, comes your way with a new head-to-head bracket-style format tomorrow night at 8 Eastern right here on ESPN. Extraordinary moments happen every night in baseball, but on one night, they all happen in one place. Don't miss the 86th All-Star Game. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern Tuesday on Fox. Jared Hughes comes out of the bullpen for the Pirates. He is unscored upon in his last 13 1/3 innings, and maybe even a bigger number if you're a starting pitcher, Shill. 23 runners have been on base. He has inherited 23 runners over the course of the season. 21 of them have been stranded. He inherits a couple of runners belonging to Francisco Liriano here tonight.
When you talk about relievers, first hitter efficiency is why that number, that stat is so important, because of inherited runners.
You wonder if he's only going to get to this one batter with Matt Carpenter up next. They got Antonio Bastardo warming up in the bullpen.
Tommy Pham is the batter, a pinch hitter for the Cardinals. Well, look at our high strength performance brought to you by Chevy Silverado. 6 1/3, 2 runs, 2 men on his responsibility. This could wind up as a win or a no decision or a loss for Francisco Liriano.
And he drove in 2.
Not a bad night.
No.
And the tough part is you take him out with a chance. These 2 runs score, he ends up getting a loss after throwing well tonight.
Pham has been in the Cardinal organization since getting drafted in the 16th round back in 2006. Made his major league debut last year. He is 27 years of age. Ooh, wow, Cervelli. I don't even know if he knew he had that one when it was in his glove.
Those were back-to-back NHL stops.
Yeah, you know, we talk about Yadier Molina, and rightly so, but you know, I don't know where the Pirates would be without Francisco Cervelli. And talking to Clint Hurdle, you know, not only has he brought the bat, the energy, but he said he realized how great a defensive catcher he is. You know, those plays are. You want to say it's luck, but
they're
it happened twice.
Just like a first baseman scooping a ball, that there's no stat for that. But the situations that prevents and saves are game changers.
The 2-1. Ground ball to third. To second one. And that's all they will get, as the throw kind of took Walker off the bag at second. Rockies, should they have turned this?
Well, you would think so, yes, but watch where Randall Grichuk is running here. He's right in the throwing lane, and Gong right there basically had to throw it over his head, and even Grichuk ducked a little bit. But watch it throw. He sees Grichuk coming right at him. You see the high release, and when he throws the high release, Walker has to stretch for it like a first baseman. I mean, watch how high he had to throw this ball. He had to change where he was throwing it, and he had to get it up. And once he got it up, he had no chance.
Do you have a chance to tag him and make a play? Or go to, I mean, he wasn't far from third, but he's moving away from it.
Hughes is out. Bastardo coming in. First and third, 2 down in a 1-run game here in Pittsburgh. Tuesday on MLB Network, and then The 86th All-Star Game from Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern on Fox. Welcome back to Pittsburgh. We are up above the Clemente Wall here, just way down the right field line. Foul pole just to our left.
What are you guys waving at? Camera's right behind you.
I don't know. They just seem like the thing to do.
Okay.
You know,
Dan did it.
We're friendly folks.
Mike LaValliere sent me a text. He said, "Man, what are you doing?" Yeah, he said, "What are you doing with that glove? You gonna eat it?" Spanky said
he
that.
knows.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Right.
With all due respect.
It's not like Richard Simmons said it.
By the way, we're going to be in the seats in Anaheim next week. We'll be up on the Monster at Fenway Park the week after that. We'll be in the seats again one more time the week after that. We haven't determined where the game is going to be yet. Find that out in a week or so. Left-hander Antonio Bastardo was on for the Pirates. And this is a tricky situation. First and third, 2 outs, protecting a 1-run lead with Matt Carpenter coming to the plate. Carpenter a walk and a couple of strikeouts tonight, but outstanding numbers with runners in scoring position this year.
And this is where he likes to try to strike early. Normally a very patient hitter, but you know, in this situation, lefty on lefty, Bastardo, you know, fastball, breaking ball pitcher. He might try to jump one early and hit one in that hole between first and second.
He did. It's into center field, but right at McCutchen, and the inning is over. The Cardinals strand a couple of runners. 7th inning stretch. Pirates up 1. In 2001, an intimate ballpark, just over 38,000 seats. The Clemente Wall in right field, 21 feet high, in honor of one of the all-time greats, Roberto Clemente. The first postseason game here was the wild card game, and it was quite a scene in 2013 when they defeated the Cincinnati Reds. The Pirates, after going so many years without making the postseason, so many years without even playing 500 ball, they are back. They have the third best record in all of baseball, perhaps on their way to the playoffs for the third year in a row. Is it time, though, where they not only can but need to take it deeper than where they've been the last couple of years?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, when you look around baseball, we all thought the Washington Nationals were going to be hands down the best team in baseball with that starting staff, but they're not healthy. And so they are, you know, keeping themselves still ahead in the East because the East isn't very good at all. But, you know, these two teams, the Cardinals and the Pirates, to me are the best two teams in the National League. And depending on which one does something at the trade deadline, could mean going deep into the postseason or getting there and not getting deep.
I think the Cubs being an X factor as well. I mean, those are three teams that I like the looks of the NL Central over the next couple of years.
New pitcher for the Cardinals, veteran left-hander Randy Choate, his 44th appearance of the season. But don't feel too bad for him being overworked. The first 43 only took up 18 innings. He is the ultimate left-handed specialist. And he comes in to face the left-hand hitting Gregory Polanco.
43 innings?
Or no, 43 appearances,
18 innings?
18, so 54 outs. 43 appearances, 54 outs.
Not allowed to ice his arm after he throws.
But valuable nonetheless.
Yep.
Gorkis Hernandez is out of the on-deck circle to pinch it. He's in the pitcher spot. This is probably one and done here for Choate.
As in one hitter.
Yes. Good looking bunt.
When you're struggling offensively, this is what you do. You have to figure out ways to get on base. Choate falls off to the third base side. Polanco with a great bunt. And from our vantage point, you could see how that ball hit and spun. He had some spin on that ball, deadened it perfectly. And, you know, no chance for Randy Choate to get it.
And I think it was an opportunistic. I don't think anybody's looking. You got a lefty in to get a lefty out. And I don't think anybody's thinking bunt. Great bunt.
Polanco talking with first base coach Nick Leyva, maybe bothered by a little something after racing down the line. And meanwhile, Mike Matheny's come out to the mound and made a pitching change. Right-hander Seth Maness, the double play specialist, will come in and inherit a runner at first base as the Cardinals try to keep this to just a one-run game. This aboard for the Pirates here in the bottom of the 7th, and the wheels are in motion now for both managers. Take one more look at this.
It looked like he was stretching out his quad once he got back to first base and
setting him up to steal.
Yeah, well, he's setting up to run the second on this bunt because Seth Maness is a double play machine, and that's the last thing Clint Hurdle and the Pirates want right now is a double play ball. So bunt him over to second, let the top of the order try to drive him in.
Yorkis Hernandez had been announced as the pinch hitter, and then Maness came in.
I don't think you bunt here.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
You got a lead.
That's pretty good though. Induce 32 ground into double play.
That's like, I think, a career total for me. But not even that.
They do try to bunt, throw down to first, runner back.
He picked off Reynolds.
Yeah, Mark Reynolds thought Polanco just took off on him after the throw by Yachty, and he was wheeling to fire at the second. Now that could have been interesting if he would have thrown it, but I mean, the bunt gets bunted through, and Reynolds thought Polanco was still going. He was catching it 360, firing to second.
I don't bunt here.
I think you got to.
No, you're up a run, nobody out. You got a chance to break a game open.
Pirates lead the majors in sacrifice bunts.
Now they take it off, and it's 0-2. Fourth and final game of this series. The Pirates have taken 2 of the first 3 to close within 3.5 of St. Louis. It's fair ball. And the Cardinals will take the out at first. Molina down to Reynolds.
Yachty was upset right there.
Yeah,
he wanted to fire that thing to second.
How did that ball stay there?
It's got to be wet. I mean, that
Yeah.
ball just.
Yep.
I mean, you couldn't bunt it any better.
Nope.
Look at Yachty. Now watch just upset, and then he throws a seed to Mark Reynolds.
Was there nobody at second, or did he
No,
just
they were there. He just.
I think there were too many moving parts down there.
But you're a first baseman, and the catcher holds it like that, and then throws a rocket. You're like, come on, get it to me quicker.
So man in scoring position with 1 out for Jordy Mercer. Mercer 1 for 3 tonight. Hey, Buster, around baseball, what do you hear the Pirates may be looking for as we get closer to the trade deadline?
Other teams have told me that they're looking possibly for first base help. But for the most part right now, guys, the market's completely locked down. I've had a number of GMs tell me today they actually think they're going to be a flurry of trades in the last 72 hours before the deadline because teams aren't ready to declare themselves as sellers yet.
Yeah, again, very few sellers. Teams that look like they were out of it, say a team like the White Sox, they're hot.
Well, the one team everybody thought was going to sell, I think the Phillies are in lockdown. I think with McVale, I don't think they're going to let Ruben do anything before the trade deadline, or they're going to orchestrate some things that'll do last minute.
One and two.
Sure, that'll set well with Phillies fans.
Yeah.
One thing specifically, guys, about the team that everyone's watching, the Cincinnati Reds, I'm told that they have made Jay Bruce available, but they haven't started off the Johnny Cueto sweepstakes. He pitched today, didn't have good results. Previous 2 outings had great results. Was told by executives all week they believe the Dodgers are the front runner for Cueto.
Fly ball to left. And Grichuk is there, 2 down. So imagine a Kershaw, Greinke, Cueto trio in the same rotation.
Tell you what, the way Greinke's pitched, we might go Greinke,
You're right.
Kershaw, Cueto.
148.
Right, and the other thing is the Dodgers are the one team you could see throwing a ton of money at Cueto to stay.
Well, Greinke can opt out and be a free agent at the end of the season. So the Dodgers can just kind of say, okay, that contract's leaving. If he goes, this contract's staying.
But if you're going to make a trade and give up those prospects, you better know you're doing it for more than a couple months of Cueto.
Is that one of those things where they can make a deal contingent on signing Cueto to a long-term deal? Because
no,
it's happened.
The club has to give you permission.
Right, you can have a 72-hour window.
You can have a 72-hour window to
now,
negotiate.
Is that during the season? And
yeah, it's like right now.
Okay.
Yeah. You can do it like Cueto can say, okay, Dodgers want you. Okay, I'll stay with the Dodgers. They have to give me a 4-year deal or whatever.
I did that, but I was in the offseason.
You were like that.
In the off, yeah.
Holding out for more money. Come on.
Neal Walker takes a strike over the outside edge, and it's 0-2.
True story. I was negotiating with a team, and I had another team calling me on the phone telling me, hey, just hang tight for 72 hours.
And you hung tight?
No,
You signed?
Yep.
If we start guessing teams, will you tell us?
I'm more concerned about if he doesn't say true story at the beginning of the story, does that mean it's not a true story?
Well, it's like double dog dare, right? I mean, that's a big one. But when you go triple dog, you can't refute it. That's you can't turn that down.
I've learned so much this year.
I know. Stick with us.
No.
I think I've got.
No, he's
dumber.
over here. He's not over there.
I think I think I've got dumber.
No.
What was that math thing again?
Fibonacci.
Yeah, that's it.
Swing and a miss at a pitch in the dirt, and the inning is over. Manus gets some big outs for the Cardinals. Still 3-2 Pirates now at the end of 7. Presented by Taco Bell's Bacon Club Chalupa. Because bacon you can't eat is bacon you don't need. And in part by Mitsubishi Motors. We're back here at PNC Park. The Pirates lead the Cardinals 3-2 as we go to the top of the 8th inning. In the final game of the Major Leagues before the All-Star break. Here are, as Schilling dubbed us before the game, the Skittles. I'm in green, Trucks in blue, Shills in red.
That's Skittle green.
That's popsicle green.
Nope, Skittle green.
So apparently we're all going to be in different colors next week. We don't have a say. We don't have any knowledge.
I like the green, to be honest with you.
I like it. It's you. Looks good on you.
Here's Tony Watson into the game.
Why do they think we're being facetious?
Well, I don't know. I like the green.
Yeah, looks good on him. As long as
but you know, we're not divas, you know.
Right,
so.
right. Well, no, that's not something we've ever done.
That grazes Colton Wall. And Watson has just put the tying run on here to begin the 8th inning.
Tony Watson tries to throw that fastball in, and it Looks like it caught his sleeve and then the tip of that elbow guard. I think that was a crushing blow.
Well, this is
but enough to put him on base.
We talk about Cardinal baseball. This is a situation where the Cardinals, this runner needs to not be at first base no matter what happens with this at bat.
Johnny Peralta, the batter, he's already homered tonight, and he lines one into left field, a base hit. Up to second goes Wong.
You bunt here, Crockett?
Well, normally you wouldn't bunt your fourth hitter, but I don't think Jason Hayward's your typical fourth hitter.
I don't think there are many typical fourth hitters.
Well, he struggles, but he struggles
right
against left-handed pitching.
Right.
And
so you're bunting?
I would bunt him, yeah, because you're not only putting the tying run at third, you're putting the go-ahead run at second base, and you know you got Yadi Molina who puts the ball in play.
But for me now, I'm bringing Rodriguez in, and as the pitcher, I've got the entire right side of the infield because I'm going to get the out at third. That's a force. The ball just needs to beat him. I don't have to have a tag play, so I want to be ultra aggressive.
Yeah, and I think it's key that they keep Colton Wong close at second base so they can have that opportunity.
Just for interest's sake, Jason Hayward has one sacrifice in his major league career. That was back in 2013 as a member of the Braves.
And Pirates obviously don't think he's bunting.
No. Well, Watson's having little command issues with the fastball to lefties. He keeps running it in, and maybe that's what the hope is here with Hayward. He can get one out over the inner part of the plate, and he can turn on it.
And you're going to get short bullpens tonight, too.
Yeah, this could be a glove situation.
I can see it.
Maybe not.
Chopper, tough hop, and everybody is safe. And an error is going to be assessed on the play.
I think this is a play where Jordy Mercer was trying to turn two. He was more concerned with 2 outs rather than just trying to get the one. I mean, you're watching right here. He's charging this ball. If he lays back and catches it on a long hop, you know, he gets the out at first or possibly even the force at second. But instead, he tried to get it coming in. The short hop, it bounced up on him, hit the heel of his glove, and now you got more danger than you had before.
So a hit batter, a base hit, and an error have loaded the bases with nobody out for Yadier Molina. He swings at the first pitch, diving stop at third, only play to first, and they get him. As Gong recovered nicely after scrambling to block that ball, but a run comes in to tie the game.
Well, Gong goes a long way for this ball, and I think if he could have caught it cleanly and didn't bobble it right there, he had every intention of trying to turn two on this play. But you see it again, another ball that hits the heel of the glove, it bounces out. But give him credit, you know, even though he threw it from his knees, he knows Yadi's not a quick runner. He had time, but
that's
still an unbelievable play.
And that was the thing today, Cruggy, that kind of jumped out at me. Dan, in the meeting, listen to people talk about his defense as if he's, you know, above average defensively, and he's starting to make a lot of really, really good plays. That was a really good play.
Playing out of position. So tied at 3, second and third, 1 out. Mark Reynolds.
I always found that good defenders are never out of position.
Right-hander Archimedes Caminero is up in the Pirates' pen with time with the Marlins each of the last 2 years.
I'm going to guess he's chief in the clubhouse. Big guy.
Well, these two teams have had some games between them this year. The 14-inning affair last night. 3 consecutive walk-off wins in extra innings for the Cardinals back in St. Louis in the opening days of May. Clint Hurdle described the rivalry as a growing one between these two teams before the game. Playoff series between them 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys. One team's got to. They both have to be good to me to have a rivalry. That's why the Cubs with Cardinals one stunned me. That the Cubs would have more wins against the Cardinals based on their history than vice versa.
Cardinals up 5-4 in the season series so far this year. This is a big one. The Pirates will be either 2.5 back or 4.5 back after this game. And a broken about liner to second for the second out. Diving back in safely is Hayward.
Infield in, Neal Walker, great alertness right there to catch and try to get the double play with Hayward breaking on that play, but Hayward gets back. There's always that risk of bringing the infield in. But if ball could get through and 2-run score, but paid off for the Pirates right there. Now one more out and they get out of this thing.
It's up to Randall Grichuk. The Cardinals are 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position tonight. Grichuk is 2 for 3 on the night, one of them an infield hit. He's got some pop. He's got 52 hits this year. 28 of them have been for extra bases. A 3-3 tie here in the 8th inning. Is he being careful with him, Schill, with Borges on deck? Base open?
No, I don't know about careful. There's 2 outs. Like, it depends on his comfort
level of you know, how he feels with his stuff right now and how it matches up with the hitter.
(2-0). Little high, ball 3.
The problem is the count. He backed himself
into a count where he can't do the things he needs to do.
You wonder how much he trusts him right here to take a whack at this thing 3-0.
Ball 4, the bases are loaded.
And that's one of those as a pitcher. The K zone shows it as a strike. It probably is at the top of the strike zone. But when you miss that much as a pitcher, you're never going to get the umpire to consistently call that. Look at the glove. Look how far he goes to catch that ball.
Strike's a strike in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, he's set up to call that ball in the inner half of the plate.
So the bases are loaded, 2 outs, and here's Borges trying to break the tie. And he takes outside, ball 1.
Now,
we know the issues last night's game with Cervelli getting thrown out. Cervelli held that one for a long time.
He's done it twice in the last 4 pitches. And that's the way a catcher tells an umpire, I think you missed it, without saying anything.
How do the umpires take that?
It depends on the umpire. Veterans don't like it at all because you invite the fans. Oh.
Dan Johnson has come out in the on-deck circle for the Cardinals.
Look how far Sean Rodriguez is over here with Borges hitting. The speed of Borges. If he hits a grounder to him, he's beating Watson to the base.
Good stop by Cervelli.
There's another great play by Francisco Cervelli. We're seeing 2 catchers putting on a clinic here tonight. Yachty throwing a runner out from his knees. Cervelli just textbook. Drop down, angle your body so if it hits you, it's going to bounce in front of you. I would imagine everyone has watched tapes of Yachty Molina wanting to become a better catcher.
Swing and a miss, 2-2. Cardinals get one to tie it, but leave them loaded. McCutchen will lead it off in the bottom of the 8th. competing in a new head-to-head bracket-style format. Tomorrow night, 8 Eastern on ESPN.
Getting into the 8th, the thing to remember now with McCutchen is this is not the pitcher's pitching him. Yadier Molina is now facing him for the 4th time, but they've got him out in. They've thrown the ball hard in, and I think that's what's going to have to happen in this at-bat as well. I'm curious to see if you've got if he goes up there trying to cheat on a ball in. He will be hunting the fastball until he gets 2 strikes. He gets one on the plate, he's going to drive it.
Kevin Segrist into the game. And you might be saying, why is a lefty coming in? McCutchen, Marte, Gong. This is a case of Mike Matheny bringing in his best available arm in this kind of a situation. Not Rosenthal time yet. Obviously, the righties who are down there are Sokolovich and Tui Valila.
And this isn't your ordinary lefty.
Yes.
95 with a changeup and slider. So
this is their 8th inning guy.
He is their guy. Yeah. Then you know what?
McCutchen 1 for 3 against Segrist. The one a home run. McCutchen, the hero last night, with a 2-run shot on the bottom of the 14th to win it. Last night off Greenwood, he sent them home happy. A 6-5 win on the 2-run homer. McCutchen's 5th career walk-off home run.
I asked McCutchen after that home run last night if he had a difficult time getting to sleep. He said absolutely. Said he was staring at the ceiling at 4 o'clock, knowing that in 6 hours he was going to have to get up for church.
Clint Hurdle said he slept like a baby last night.
Clint had a short night.
Yeah, he only lasted a couple of innings.
He got home late, but he didn't work hard.
Yeah.
Here's the Andrew McCutchen swing, and watch his hips, how quick they fire. Look how quick those things are. I mean, they're lightning quick. And he told me this spring that that is something he has worked on since he was a youngster.
And he strikes out for the 3rd time tonight.
Cardinals have done a fantastic job of pitching tonight. Watch. First of all, you can't substitute for velocity, and the velocity allows you to miss. You got a slider first pitch. He's aggressive. They teed up. Yadi tees on it, stays that down and away on the block almost with the fastball away. Fastball, slider, changeup. Turned it over.
You look where every one of those pitches were. None of them were in the heart of the plate or even near, like middle in or middle away. They were all away or all in.
Pedro Martinez said it. You do not get great hitters out in strike zone. You've got to make them do something that makes them uncomfortable as a hitter. And they've pitched him phenomenal tonight.
And sometimes you see a guy with, in a big situation like this, 8th inning, he knows he hits a home run, he puts him ahead. Melanson comes in. You're thinking win, but sometimes they'll get over aggressive.
He's trying to win the game right there, which is what he's supposed to do. You trust him to do the right thing in that at bat. That was just excellent. That was just an outstanding sequence from Segrist and Molina.
Marte is 0 for 3. The 2-0 from Segrist. Swing and a miss, 2-1.
That's a great changeup. But, a guy's throwing 95 miles an hour. You get ahead in the count, a young hitter, 2-0, who's going to be very aggressive, too. Even a veteran hitter would swing at that.
Great pitch.
And in a perfect spot.
Comes back with 95 down and in, ball 3.
See, that changeup sets this up. Now, he's looking fastball. He's sitting fastball, but in his mind, you got to think that there's possibly something else.
And this is where if he does throw a fastball and throws it in, he could get him jammed and get a little pop up to second.
What a play down at third by Carpenter to spear it on the fly.
I don't know
what's more amazing, the fact that he caught that ball or the fact that he got the barrel to that pitch
and kept it fair.
Yeah.
That this is the no doubles defense late in the game, and
talk about guarding the line.
Yeah, that's like
that's why.
That's slap shot right there. I mean, that ball was whistling at him.
That's a great look from down the left field line.
But that's the thing. Like, if it was the first through the 7th inning, that's a double.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now Gong. Gong tonight 0 for 2. He's also walked and been thrown out trying to steal. Carpenter hugging that line again.
I think you give up too much doing that all the time.
Well, that time it paid off.
It did. And I think it's rare that it does, but when it does, it's big. But you're taking away anything from the right, because everything he does to his right is pretty much a foul ball.
Turn him loose?
Yes. I do.
Yeah, he's got monster pop, so give him a shot.
Ball 4.
He was swinging.
Yep, he had a changeup.
Now Francisco Cervelli is first at bat tonight. He tripled. Second triple of the season for Cervelli. Slid in style.
The perfect slide. Hands above your head. You don't have to worry about
dislocating
a finger of any sort.
Ooh, did he get him? Somehow he got out of the way of that.
Look where that dot is for K-zone, and it's behind him.
Wow.
I don't know how that missed him.
Yeah, it missed him because he wasn't camping. He's looking. Guys get drilled by that pitch when they're cheating out over. Is it me, or is there some Posada in that stance and that bat? No gloves, which would make sense.
Well, came up with him.
Yep.
Yeah, they got deep. He ain't gonna hit a triple here. If he hits a triple, two of them collided. Borges or Grichuk or Borges and Hayward, because they're no doubles defense. The last thing they want is a ball in the gap and Gunn to be able to score.
Derek Lilliquist, the pitching coach, on the way out to the mound to find out where Kevin Seager's control has gone.
And that's the thing. These aren't just misses. These are really bad misses.
They're non-competitive pitches.
So what do you hear in a situation like this, Shills? The pitching coach just saying
it's just he's trying to throw too hard, and it happens. It happens for guys that throw 88. It happens for guys that throw 95. He's trying to be better. The analogy is you're golfing, you have an eagle on the hole, and you try and do better the next hole. Just stay within yourself. And for guys like this, his whole game is fastball command, and he's missing so badly he can't set anything up. So now you sit fastball in your spot, wherever that is.
walked Gong. Now he's 2-0 on Cervelli. Tie game in the bottom of the 8th inning. Missed, down and in again. Ball 3. And I'll ask you again, Kruggy. Now does Cervelli get the green light?
I don't think so. I mean, he walked Gong on 4 straight pitches. He's thrown 3 pitches that aren't close. Now Cervelli's been around a while. He might have more discipline but
this is a shot where you might get it like a guided fastball.
Yeah.
Sean Rodriguez on deck.
You got it.
Down the right field line, foul, and in and out of the first row. No play for Hayward.
That was his shot.
But that tells you the velocity of Kevin Seagrist. You know, you got 3-0 and you got the green light. I mean, you're trying to hammer something in the left field seats. And
well, But
Cervelli got that pitch away and couldn't get to it. I mean, look at how deep that ball got on him.
We were talking last night. He went 3-0 changeup last at bat and walked the guy. So maybe, Cervelli's got the green light, but maybe he's not committed 100% to the fastball.
Out of play again, a full count.
Well, the action starts now.
Pedro Alvarez walking around with a bat in the Pirates dugout.
Yeah, he's waiting for a righty to come in.
Yep.
Well, if Cervelli walks right here, do you bring in a righty to face Sean Rodriguez? And if so, then the risk of Pedro Alvarez hitting or become greater.
Runner will be going. 3-2.
I think you got to be careful because you're 3-3. You got a chance to play another 14-15 tonight with a bullpen that was taxed last night. I know you're squinting. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Trying to look out for the pitchers.
I hear you.
It's all about the pitchers, Greg.
If he walks him, though, the decision with Matheny is, do I want Segras, whose command isn't very good, pitching, or do I want a righty in to face Rodriguez?
And a high fly ball to deep right. Hayward feeling for the wall, makes the catch on the warning track, and the inning is over. Segras squirms out of trouble. And we're at the end of 8. That got everybody on their feet here at PNC Park, but just a few feet short. And Cervelli gave it a ride to deep right field. Hayward, though, with just enough room. And we are still tied here at the end of 8. Thanks to our seats out here and right. We got a good look at that one. Home Run Derby comes your way tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, right here on ESPN. Crucky and Schill will both be a part of the coverage. Crucky has Todd Frazier, and Schill has Prince Fielder.
I got reasons for Todd Frazier.
Hometown fans?
He doesn't want them yelling at him.
Yeah, that stopped me before. No, he's actually he's my mom's favorite player. Ever since he played in the Little League World Series, she's loved Todd Frazier. So every time we do a Reds game or All-Star, he's there. She always tells me, make sure you tell Todd I said hello.
Here's Mark Melancon into the game for the Pirates. The closer comes in, tie game at home, top of the 9th inning. Melancon recording his major league leading 29th save on Friday. And here is Dan Johnson, recently summoned from the minors by the Cardinals, best known probably for the home run he hit on the last day of the 2011 season as a member of the Tampa Bay Rays.
I was doing that game.
Might have been one of the greatest days in baseball ever.
I did that game, that Tampa game. We thought it was over.
Everybody thought it was over.
Yankees took a big lead. Joe Girardi took out his starters, and then here comes hit. Longoria hits a home run, and he come up. Dan Johnson came up and hit one. He shanked one over the other dugout. He was so late, and I'm like, well, this isn't going to end well for him. And then he turns on the fan, and
here it is.
And that was, we all knew.
Everybody knew.
Well, that put them into the postseason.
Yep.
Because the Red Sox had lost already to Baltimore.
Watching Papelbon blow that save that day was like, this can't really be happening. Then Longo goes deep, and it's like, oh my God. Yeah, that was an amazing day. Tough day in Boston.
That's right. That home run eliminated Boston, correct?
That one's tied the game, but Longoria's won the game. There's a swing and a miss by Johnson for out number 1.
Hey, see, it's all coming back to me now.
Something is.
Well, that was a long day.
1 out here in the 9th inning, and back to the top of the order for Matt Carpenter. Crucky, what is it that makes Mark Melancon so tough? He's not overpowering, but the numbers are great.
Yeah, I think he's another one of those guys that hide the ball well. I mean, you watch his delivery; it's a little odd though. The glove comes up high, and you have to remember what he
he's got that pitch right there.
It's the Chris Young. It's like
that's a 91-mile-an-hour slider.
That high elbow, and then all of a sudden it just shoots straight downhill on you.
He had a rough run in Boston.
Real rough.
He couldn't get anybody out, and then he comes over here. And
as good as there is.
Yeah, and
going to the All-Star game.
Some guys just don't do well in some places.
And you remember when he first came here, he was setting up for Jason Grilli.
Yep.
And then Grilli got hurt. He assumes the role, and that's the way you got to do it here.
Hated to see that Grilli injury the other day. Oh,
torn Achilles.
Covering
the back. Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind is that the Pirates have developed a reputation for fixing pitchers. We've seen it with Liriano, Melancon, other guys as well, the way that Dave Duncan used to fix pitchers with the Cardinals.
He is fixed. 29 saves to lead the majors. 1-1 to Carpenter. A curveball that catches the corner. 1-2.
That's just.
Carpenter says no, that was not a strike.
He throws 92. His last fastball is 92, but it feels like 98. And then that comes, and that's borderline. Maybe a touch low, but close enough to be called a strike. According to the team throwing the ball, the guy hitting.
The difference is where it crosses the plate and where you're at in the back of the batter's box. It goes from low to obscenely low.
The curveball fouled off.
And now you're forcing him to swing at that.
Yeah, and we've seen a couple swings. Off Liriano, you can kind of expect it from Matt Carpenter on the slider, be a little off balance, but this is a right-handed pitcher this tells you how great Melancon's curveball is. That you got a guy that's usually as calm in the batter's box, slow. He's really jumping tonight at a lot of pitches.
See, but that right there, that's command in the sense of he threw that first one down in the zone, then he threw one lower, and then he threw one trying to walk him out of the strike zone.
The umpire threw the ball to Melancon. It short hopped him. And he scooped it like a first baseman, fired it into the dugout. You pitcher. Better be careful here, though. He better throw a curveball. If he's throwing, he better keep it down.
He did, and he did, and Carpenter checked the swing, so the count is full.
Good call.
Bring him up. Bring him up. On deck, Colton Wong. Tie game here in the top of the ninth.
You hear someone in the dugout say, if he'd hit it, it'd have been a double.
Yeah, it's kind of always that guy.
3-2. Ground ball to second. Walker to a knee. 2 down. Meanwhile, the Cardinals pen. We saw a couple of relievers up. For St. Louis, Sam Tuivailala is up presumably if the game remains tied. If the Cardinals take the lead, you'll see the closer, Trevor Rosenthal.
Throwing 172.
You're good with Tui.
Tui?
Tui, yes.
I can handle that.
Big fella. Chief. Big guy.
He has to have an easy nickname, right? Is it?
Yeah.
It is Tui.
Tui.
That's the
What's his
PR
first
guy
name?
said we can call him
Sam.
that, right?
Sam,
Call
no,
him Sam.
Sammy.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Sammy.
Sam's into pitch.
Yeah. Tui? Yeah, Tui, definitely.
Soft liner to first, and the inning is over. Tie game. Will there be magic again for the Pirates? They'll come up in a 3-3 tie as we go to the bottom of the ninth. Dan Schulman, John Kruk, Kurt Schilling. Above the Clemente Wall, just inside the foul pole down the right field line.
We actually have a celebrity with us, somebody that's actually famous.
Go for it.
Kristen Sandberg, professional softball player, female rookie of the year. Her rookie year is now playing up here in Pittsburgh. I had a game today and they lost. They've lost a couple in a row.
13.
I wasn't going to say it, yeah. What, 13 in a row? 13. She can play. She can play.
Yeah, she can. Oof.
We're going to the bottom of the ninth. The Pirates and the Cardinals are tied at 3.
Yep.
There she is.
Yep.
Hey, wave. You're on TV.
Wave, you're on.
There you go.
We were dogging her for the whole Mets thing. Really?
Yeah. She grew up in New York. She's a big Mets fan. So, of course, you come to watch a Cardinals Pirates game, you wear your Mets gear.
She's not afraid.
Sam Tuivailala into the game here in the bottom of the ninth. Sean Rodriguez will lead it off for the Pirates. The Pirates won in dramatic fashion in the 14th inning last night.
I'm thinking we're going to get like 18 tonight.
I got a feeling Pedro Alvarez is going to be hitting here if Rodriguez or Polanco don't score first. Pedro Alvarez is going to be hitting.
He's got a homer off too, and he has only a bat against him in his career.
Chicken. Say the whole name, Buster. Come on.
In the dirt, a ball and a strike.
You know how Schill hates nicknames, so let's go. He can't be Tooey. Can he not hear me?
Buster's got
Sorry,
nothing.
I'm on Twitter right now.
No,
I'll get back to you.
Buster's got a weak game.
He's a writer too. You'd think he'd be the smart one.
He knows he wouldn't last 5 minutes in the clubhouse.
Fastball at the knees, and it's 1-2, and Rodriguez did not like the call.
97 from Tui Valala.
Nice grunt.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were mad about Fibonacci? Really?
Wow, that's his name.
Okay. You don't know.
Is Fibonacci a guy, or is that just some math stuff?
Well, hold on a second. His name has a meaning, I'm sure.
I'm sure everyone's does.
Well, Fibonacci has a meaning too. You don't have to know.
It's an important game.
Come on, Chief.
Get away from that.
Fouled off 1-2. Tui Valala, 22 years of age, third-round pick by the Cardinals in 2010. They have been producing arms the last few years. He made just a couple of appearances with the Cardinals last year. Converted from a shortstop to a pitcher in 2012. Ooh. And he gets him over the outside corner, at least in the mind of home plate umpire Brian Knight, not in the mind of Sean Rodriguez.
That was, whether it's a ball or a strike, it was a late call, and that's what gets a player upset. You think, okay, wow. I just had a great take right there, and
well, and the umpire did what he's supposed to do when he thinks he might have missed it, and I think he did. I think he knows. Keeps his mask on and lets the player gripe.
Now Polanco intentionally walked, an RBI single, then a bunt single, so a productive night for him. One swing of the bat can end it here in the bottom of the ninth inning. And Pedro Alvarez is indeed out in the on-deck circle right now in the pitcher spot. If you're looking for Sports Center, it comes your way following the conclusion of this game here on ESPN. We're in the bottom of the ninth inning at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Our vantage point from above the Clemente Wall down the right field line. Good game. The Cardinals and the Pirates are tied at 3. And another strikeout. 2 down. Wow. No argument from Polanco.
Do the Cardinals just, I mean,
yeah,
it's amazing.
It's not a hard throw. This guy's throwing 98.
And he's freezing guys with fastballs.
Right. Come on. There's some downward angle on this ball. He's a big boy.
Here's Pedro Alvarez.
I'd like to sit there for 9 innings.
Nope.
And then say, okay, go up and get some 98 right here.
I didn't like to sit for 1 inning and see 88, much less 98, ankle high.
Alvarez hitting .237, but he's got a lot of power. 12 home runs on the season.
How hard is this, Truckee?
Oh, to sit there for that long
to get pinch hit right here.
It's tough. You know the thing with it's not like Pedro's just strictly a pinch hitter.
Right.
He gets a lot of at bats, so it's a little easier for him. But at my first couple years when you weren't playing a lot, oh my goodness.
Homered in his only at bat against Tui Valala, who started him with a changeup.
Oh.
Pops him up. Extra innings again here in Pittsburgh. We are tied at 3 going to the 10th. Time from Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, a great park if you're a home run hitter. Tied at 3 as we move on to extra innings. The top of the 10th inning here in Pittsburgh. And the new pitcher for the Pirates is right-hander Archimedes Caminero. 28 years of age, from the Dominican Republic, making his 40th appearance of the season for what has been a good Pirates bullpen, a very good Pirates bullpen this year. He does not inherit an easy job, though. He's facing 3, 4, 5 in the Cardinal lineup. 3 is Johnny Peralta. And Crucky, earlier tonight, Peralta hit his team-leading 13th home run of the season.
Yeah, and well-deserving all-star. He didn't wait around. First pitch looked like a changeup from Liriano. And he was aggressive early in the count and every at-bat tonight. And that one right there, he got rewarded for it with that big home run.
Crowd of over 33,000 at the outset of the game. Has thinned just a little bit here as we move late into Sunday night. Here's Peralta, 2 for 3 tonight. 2 for 3 in his career against Caminero. As the Cardinals come up at the top of the 10th. Caminero, the 6th pitcher of the night for the Pirates. The Cardinals have used 5. Remember, these two teams went 14 innings last night. Good thing the All-Star break is coming on for these two teams. And he hooks it just over the head of a leaping Mercer into left field for a leadoff base hit.
We mentioned the aggressiveness of Johnny Peralta. It's not waiting around another changeup that he gets out in front of, and like you said, that just shows you how strong he is. If one hand hit one off the end of the bat, break your bat, and still get enough to get it over Jordy Mercer's head.
Good night for Peralta, who's headed to the All-Star game. And here's Hayward, 0 for 3 with a walk.
That throw over to first base wasn't because he was afraid Peralta was going to steal on him. He thought to see if Hayward would commit to the bunt.
And a sinking liner into left field for a base hit. Into second just in time is Peralta. Kind of caught in between there as to whether or not that ball would be caught.
Well, that's a tough play. I mean, Starling Marte come up firing, and I tell you what, lucky he caught that on the short hop. But yeah, well, I don't get it. It's, you know, you got to slide on that play for Johnny Peralta. I mean, that's too close. But it was funny because it said, well, not funny. As soon as the call was made, you saw Clint Hurdle walk out of the dugout. One of his coaches made a beeline for the phone. As soon as the safe call was made.
Pete Cosma's come on to run at second base for Peralta, representing the go-ahead run. And the batter will be Yadier Molina.
That's so much for Hayward bunt. Now you wonder if Yadi's going to be bunt.
He's got 1 this year. Bunts it foul.
Yeah, I was thinking the urgency to get this game done.
Oh, hold on. That's interesting right there.
Are they grumbling that maybe he touched that ball and it was still in play?
I don't know if it hit him. And if it hit him, it's a dead ball. But
I think
if it didn't.
I think it did. Bounced off his leg and came back.
Lakers fan not happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hit him.
Yeah.
Okay. Said 93. That looked harder 93, didn't it?
They all look harder than 93 now.
First 2 men on for the Cardinals, trying to break the tie in the top of the 10th. It has gone really quiet here in Pittsburgh, as quiet as it's been all night long. Bunted foul again. A failure to execute by Molina.
And here's where they can make a good pitch on him right here, knowing that he's swinging. They could get a double play and give themselves a better chance of getting out of this inning.
Shoots it foul right side. If the Cardinals can win this game, they'll have completed an 8-game road trip through Chicago and Pittsburgh. They split 4 with the Cubs. And a win tonight, they split 4 with the Pirates. 2 teams chasing them down. And if you can go 4-4 on that kind of a road trip, you
play 500 on the road. Take care of business at home like they do.
And a chopper. There's one. And not in time at first base.
Now here's the advantage you have as a runner on first base when there's first and second. You can get a bigger lead and a bigger secondary lead. And watch Jason Hayward bearing down on Neal Walker right here. I mean, everything was done right. Mercer got it to him quick, but look at Hayward. Forced Neal Walker to go more toward the third base side of second base than he wanted to, because if he steps straight, Hayward wipes him out. That extra second, though, caused Yadier Molina there to be safe.
So runners on the corners with a 1 out, and the batter is Mark Reynolds. Reynolds hit 2 home runs in last night's game. He is 0 for 4 tonight. The Cardinals are now 0 for 10 with the runners in scoring position in this game.
This is all about the strikeout. You're not trying. There's no other result you're after right here. You're not going to hit. You don't feel like you're going to get a ground ball. You know you got a lot of swing and miss at the plate too.
Rosenthal looking on from the bullpen for the Cardinals, hoping for an opportunity to come in and get a save in the bottom half of the inning. Reynolds trying to give St. Louis the lead. Ooh, and he hit him to load the bases. Got him right in the hand, it looks like.
It's a broken hand. Gosh, that's no way to protect yourself there.
No, 98 running up and in.
And you're hitting your hand against the bat.
Yeah, with there's no give.
Nope. Ugh.
Oh, right in the forearm.
Oh boy.
There's no give there either. I mean, that's.
Mark Reynolds now on his feet and slowly walking down to first. So he will stay in the game, and the bases are now loaded with a 1 out. Matheny still with some concern, not quite ready to sign off on Reynolds staying in the game. Now he is. And
well, there's not a lot of choice. I mean, Tony, they've used everyone on their bench with Cosma pinch running for Johnny Peralta, except Tony Cruz is the backup catcher. You know, I'm sure Mark's going to try to. He's a tough guy. You can see the bruise already on his forearm. That's, you know, that he's going to try to stay in the field and, you know, hoping that the Cardinals score a run right here and he doesn't have to hit again, because I don't think he'll be able to hit again.
Here is Grichuk. Bases loaded, 1 out, tie game. First pitch swinging, lines the ball into right center for extra bases. 1 run home, 2 runs home. Reynolds getting the wave. Relay to the plate is in time to get him. Grichuk comes around to third on the play. Reynolds appears to be okay, and the Cardinals have now taken a 5-3 lead.
Well, you know the fear of not wanting to hit someone with the bases loaded, but the last thing you want to do is throw something over the center of the plate. And that's what Caminaro did. 2 runs scored. Now this is the left hand that Reynolds is reaching out with, the one that got hit by the pitch. And he got tagged right on that same spot. So yeah, he's hurt.
Grichuk is credited with a triple. Now a diving catch by Neal Walker. Denies Peter Borges and ends the inning. But the damage has been done. A 5-3 lead for the Cardinals. We'll see McCutchen among others for the Pirates in the bottom of the 10th. Inning has given the Cardinals a 5-3 lead. Can they hang on and win this one after letting it slip away in extra innings last night against the Pirates? They will turn it over. Yeah, they are back. A terrific team. But if they lose tonight, they fall back to 4.5 behind the Cardinals. Pete Cosma stays in the game at short after running for Johnny Peralta. And on the mound for the Cardinals, one of the game's best closers, the hard-throwing right-hander Trevor Rosenthal, 26 for 27 in save opportunities this season.
You know what you're going to get with Trevor Rosenthal since he's moved to throwing from the stretch only. The mid to upper 90s fastball, breaking ball, and he even throws a changeup now, which it just gets worse and worse for the hitters.
Top of the order for the Pirates: Mercer, Walker, and McCutchen. McCutchen, the hero of last night's game with a home run in the 14th.
The Cardinals 3 outs away from a split and a 4.5 game lead heading into the All-Star break. Rosenthal ready to go. Mercer 1 for 4 on the night. And a strike. Mercer in his career 1 for 5 against Rosenthal. Takes high, a ball and a strike. The next 2 hitters, Walker and McCutchen, have very good numbers against Rosenthal.
So what you're trying to say is Jordy Mercer gets on, the Pirates have a chance.
Not many have had a chance the way that Rosenthal has been throwing this year. But with a guy like McCutchen, you can never count him out. Mercer trying to get something started. Pirates down by 2. And a fly ball fading foul out of play. Again, the 1-2, and he bounces it in. 2 balls and 2 strikes. 90-mile-an-hour. What was that? That wasn't a fastball.
It looked like a changeup, or it looked like he just buried a changeup. But yeah, 90. That's what most guys throw it. Changeup at 90. They like that. Veteran catcher talking to Caminaro.
Jammed him, dropping a base hit. The tying run will come to the plate. Neal Walker will come up with Andrew McCutchen out of the on-deck circle. Walker 1 for 4 tonight, 5 for 10 in his career against Trevor Rosenthal. And with the magic that the Pirates have had on a number of occasions this year in this ballpark, nobody in this ballpark right now, at least the Pirates fans, are willing to concede anything, even with Rosenthal on the mound. Ball 1.
What if we get our happy-go-lucky researcher to check and see if anyone's ever hit back-to-back walk-offs in extra innings?
Dan, you can wake him up.
He's shaking his head. I don't know if that means no, no, it's never been done, or no, I'm not going to do that.
I think it meant no, he's not going to look it up.
And a high fly ball, deep center. Borges is on the warning track to make the catch. Well, that was close.
Well, and this is where the game's different from here than it is up in the booth.
Yes.
Because we knew that wasn't going out. In the booth, we had no chance.
Now McCutchen. It was just 24 hours ago, even less than that, in fact, when he sent him home happy with a 2-run home run at the bottom of the 14th inning to give the Pirates a 6-5 win.
You don't see good hitters like this have a bad 0 for 5.
He's on an 18-game hitting streak, too. Needs a base hit to extend that.
Well, you got a fastball pitcher against probably one of the better, the premier fastball hitters in the game, too.
Almost got him. I think McCutchen is saying it hit me.
I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't. He didn't want to go down to first.
Yeah.
Tell there.
That is a reviewable play. Tough to tell.
I wouldn't review it. I want him hitting if I'm the Pirates.
Especially with a 2-0 count.
Yeah.
Oh. And a high strike, 2-1.
No. That's not really fair.
Starling Marte, the cleanup hitter, on deck.
just outside, ball 3. McCutchen 4 for 12, a .333 average in his career against Rosenthal. One of the 4 hits a home run.
Better be down and away or off.
99, and it's a full count.
He just missed that too.
99 up and away.
On the black.
He had that swing on it. Wow.
He was late on that ball.
And a bouncing ball to third, charged by Carpenter. They'll get McCutchen for the second out. Mercer to second on the play, and the Pirates are down to their final out. It'll be Marte, who is 0 for 4 on the night, and is 1 for 7 in his career against Rosenthal. Cardinals an out away from a win and a split in the series, a 4-game series, and a 4.5-game lead over the Pirates in the National League Central. Ball 1. Home Run Derby tomorrow night right here on ESPN. Begins at 8 Eastern Time. Regular season action resumes Friday night. 1 week from tonight will be in Anaheim as the Hot Angels host the Tigers. Into right field. That's a base hit. Cut off by Hayward. The run will score to make it 5-4. Marte held to a long single. It ain't over yet.
Started Marte hits that hard ball to right field, and Jason Hayward got to it quickly, but this is the definition of the no doubles defense. He's playing so deep, trying to keep Marte off of second base, the tying run out of scoring position, that he got to that ball so quickly and kept Marte, who can run, at first base.
Now, last night's game can eventually turn around the season. They pull it off tonight, and this to me is a season changer.
The batter is Jung Ho Gong. 0 for 2, a couple of walks. 2 for 3, including a home run against Rosenthal. And the Cardinals want to talk it over. Marte, the runner at first, 16 steals on the season. Gong has some power.
If there'll be any thought to maybe running Marte. I know Yachty threw out a base runner. He threw out Gunn from his knees.
Strike over the inside corner, 1-1.
What do you? I mean, obviously you're looking for a fastball, Jake. What are you looking? What are you trying to?
You just, with Rosenthal throws that hard, you just got to hope you guess the location right.
Line to center field, a base hit. Marte up to second. Can they do it again?
Here's the thing. Even if they don't, this is a game where you just know you're a good team. These are the kind of things I think that carry for good teams. Never out of a game.
Mike Matheny to the mound to talk with Rosenthal. Francisco Cervelli will be the hitter. There is nobody out of the Cardinal pen. This hitting belongs to the closer, Rosenthal, for better or for worse. Cervelli 1 for 4 tonight, tripled back in the second, 0 for 2 in his career against Rosenthal.
What do you think, Cruggy? What do you got?
Does he go off speed first pitch?
I'm calling double down the right field line.
I think Cervelli's going to be swinging out his shoes on the first one. He did go off speed. Wow.
Threw him a slider down and away.
But it's ball one. And now what? The fastball's getting hit. Does he have enough confidence to throw a fastball in a great location to hopefully get Cervelli out? I think you got to try to come in and jam him right here.
Three hits have produced a run for the Pirates here in the bottom of the 10th. It is 5-4. They're down to their final out. The tying run at second to Marte, very good speed. Off speed again, and he missed low ball 2. And now he's almost backed himself into a fastball count.
That was a split or a change.
Remember, if he hits one to right, if he lines a single to right, Hayward has a very good arm.
Ooh. Well, that's where Starlin Marte, they're not even bothered with him. Cosma and Cole Wong aren't even close. Starlin Marte has to get a huge lead and a great secondary lead.
The pitch fouled off, and it is 2-2. And again, the Pirates are down to their final strike.
Goes high fastball.
I think he's going to try to throw him something. Change up or
Breaking ball.
Slider, try to get him to get a strikeout.
Fastball.
And a base hit down the right field line. This is going to tie the game.
To the fastball way, and I tell you what, you wonder why a guy's hitting 290, 293 coming into this game. He can hit, you hit that pitch, you're on time and you're locked in. Francisco Cervelli, a huge RBI.
You're pitching against your defense right there.
Exactly.
They had everybody shaded to pull. He threw a great fastball down and away. There's nobody there to catch the ground ball.
Second time in as many nights they've scored off Rosenthal. Wasn't a blown save last night. It is a blown save tonight. Just his second blown save of the season. And now Travis Ishikawa is going to pinch hit for Sean Rodriguez.
This is where the wild pitch becomes an issue.
Now they're not holding Cervelli on smartly, giving Mark Reynolds a little more range back there. So if I'm Cervelli, though, I'm going to try to take second base right here, just for the fact that if Ishikawa hits one in the hole between short and second or short and third, you know, Cosma can't wheel and throw at the second base for its force.
Check swing, and it's low ball 2.
And I think that's what you're looking at. You're looking at it if it's on the ground the other way. You're not expecting the pull.
First time this season that Rosenthal has allowed a run or runs in consecutive appearances. Ball 3. And now there is activity. Miguel Sokolovich is up. And ball 4 loads the bases for Gregory Polanco.
The playoff atmosphere. Playoff atmosphere here in the Berg, isn't it?
Watch. Yeah. I mean, this is fun. Watch this first pitch, though. This first pitch is huge for both guys.
28 pitches thrown by Rosenthal. That matches the most that he has thrown in an appearance this season. Young Polanco, 2 for 3 on the night. Trying to be the hero. And they win it again. For the second night in a row, the Pirates overcome a deficit in extra innings and stun the Cardinals. This is storybook kind of stuff for the Pirates the last 24 hours.
This is what teams are going to play in October. These are the games. These are the weeks. You got 4 days to cook on this in a good way for the Pirates. And you're not out of a game the rest of the year. That's the big one. They're not out.
Young hitter Gregory Polanco and 4 straight balls to Travis Ishikawa to get to Gregory Polanco, and he doesn't waste any time. First pitch, yeah, he got jammed a little bit, but he's big enough, he's strong enough, he got enough of the barrel on it to get that ball over the head.
That was
long and right in front of Jason Hayward, and no chance.
And if you saw Molina, that's the pitch they were trying to throw. They were trying to go fastball in right there. He throws it, and he beats him.
They just got 5 hits in 2/3 of an inning of Trevor Rosenthal, one of the hardest pitchers to get a hit off of in baseball. Unbelievable.
Well, but there are things that happen in clubhouses and with teams when guys really truly care about each other that are different. And this is one of those teams that's just they're different.
They stunned the Cardinals for the second night in a row. Beat them 6-5 in 14 last night. Beat them 6-5 in 10 here tonight. They're 2.5 back of the Cardinals with the All-Star break now upon us. Don't forget, tune in to ESPN tomorrow night. Baseball tonight at 7 Eastern. The Gillette Home Run Derby begins at 8 Eastern from PNC Park. The final again, the Pirates 6 and the Cardinals 5. For John Kruk, Kurt Schilling, Buster Olney, and our crew, I'm Dan Schulman saying so long and thanks for watching.